Today is Tuesday, February 13th, 2024. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. In accordance with the requirements of the open meeting law, please be advised that this meeting is being recorded and broadcast live over the Lunenburg Public Access channel, on Facebook Live on the Public Access Facebook page, and will be uploaded to the Lunenburg Access YouTube channel after the meeting. The agenda lists all the topics which may be discussed at the meeting and are those reasonably anticipated by the chair. Votes may be taken as a result of these discussions. Not all items listed may in fact be discussed, and other items not listed may also be brought up for discussion to the extent permitted by the open meeting law. We're to begin this evening with public comments from the board. Do we have any public comments this evening from the board?
I have none.
No.
All right. And I would just like to note that we are joined this evening by Selectman Nizzolo via Zoom, and Selectman Franco is unable to be with us this evening. Any public comments, Heather?
No.
Any public comments from the public?
George Burden, 39 Cortlandt Circle, just continuing.
Would you mind just repeating that at the microphone?
Yes,
please?
George Burden, 39 Cortlandt Circle, just repeating. I just want to, address some of the issues that you mentioned. You had a January 9th meeting that I told you I was not going to attend, but I basically felt you persecuted me. We had a situation in the village of Flat Hill. Yes, we do know it's a private road. The town doesn't have any responsibility for our roads. Is that accurate to say? No oversight?
The public comment, Mr. Burden.
Okay, so yeah, I'd like to ask, I've sent you guys emails, I've sent the town manager, no response. Still no responses, right? So I've been here before, I was very upset last time. I've kind of cooled down a little, but I still have the questions, still responses. Mr. Jeffries, you mentioned on January 9th that I sent you over 300 texts. I counted those texts, and you said they were public records. The town manager has indicated you don't have those texts. I have them. I counted them. 176 between you and I. I sent about 60% of those. Why are you stating that I sent you over 300 texts? Why, you don't even want to answer, right? So I know you're not going to answer me.
Public comments.
Yeah, I know you're not going to answer me, but I just want to state all these things. You said I sent you 500 emails. I don't think that's accurate, and if that is accurate, most of those are due to responses that I've had to follow up with the town manager on requests. I've had to appeal document requests with the state. It's just an awful situation, and you sit here and persecute me, and Mr. Franco sits here and indicates that there's a gun violation in our association. I'd love to know what that's all about, okay? These are all things that you guys have stated that I knew you weren't here, but you chose to speak about me, which a lot of those things are completely false. You don't know what's going on in our association. That association is a dysfunctional association, to tell you the truth. It's a dysfunctional association. I've been told I can't contact the trustees. They won't respond to our letters. They're here tonight. I'd like to see, I don't even think you should even be speaking to these guys. It's a dysfunctional association that the town should step in and do some things about, because 9 inches of snow on our road with 45 homes that can't get out, you're going to send ambulances, fire engines to our homes? Is that not your responsibility? You said you have no responsibility for our private roads. I don't understand that when you have ambulances or fire stations, fire engines that have to come and rescue people in our roads. 45 homes. There's probably 150 residents, young and old. You don't think there's any problem there? I'll leave it at that. I do have more things that I'll be coming down to attend my 3 minutes every so often to address some of the things that you've mentioned. It probably took 15 minutes of a town meeting to persecute me, and basically didn't say anything nice about us or at all. And you don't even know what's going on, Mr. Jeffries. The reason we brought up the situation that I was attacked, it was because a year and a half, about what was it, December 30th of 2022, you called me on my phone with a friend who was in my car. We were together. I picked up the phone. It was after you've told me twice before not to contact you, but you're now contacting me. Okay? You reached out. You told me at that point in time you couldn't have an ambulance come to me because there's only one ambulance in town. I was sent to 2 hospitals. That's why this issue is coming back up. When you spoke to me, and we spoke many times during that conversation, you told me there was situations in town that people were looking into about nepotism. okay? I'd like to understand where that has gone, because this whole thing has to do with nepotism and someone covering for people. You told me that. You talked to the town manager, you talked to the chief of police. I have this in text. You told me to go to the chief of police. I went to the chief of police. I sent an email. You turned around and told me I was batshit crazy. I don't understand that. That signaled red flags for everybody saying, this
Well,
guy
Mr.
says
Mr.
this,
Burden,
and then 100...
unfortunately, your time has expired.
that's fine.
The invitation nonetheless remains that if at any point in time you'd like to meet with the board to go over all of your many questions...
We're not going to discuss these
More
things.
than happy to schedule that.
We're not going to discuss them at a town meeting. I don't think it's appropriate. When you persecute me, I will come down and defend myself, absolutely. But I do not think it's an appropriate place
you.
to discuss the things that are going on.
Thank you
And
for
we
your
can do
comment this
that.
evening, Mr. Burden.
Excuse me?
Thank you for your comment.
Thank
this
you.
evening. Do we have any other public comments from the public this evening?
Good evening, everybody. John Bowen, 162 Highland Street. I'm here with Jean Marie Price. She's just sitting back there. I'd like to begin, as I begin every single time, in the same manner and fashion that I always begin. I would like to thank the chair and the board for allowing me this opportunity for 3 minutes, even though that the chair can allow me up to 15. I appreciate the time of uninterrupted 3 minutes. I thought tonight I would kind of fire this off kind of like Doc Holliday, so it might go a little quick. It's just going to be a little detailed. On August 17, 2023, Mr. Jeffries, you communicated with Nancy Yasko through multiple emails, editing 310, the rules and regulations, as well as policy. Now, I have multiple emails of your input to these policy changes, edits, and the changes to the regulations. Attorney Adam Costa on August 11th, 2023, he communicated a concern about the language and policy and rules which the cemetery already passed, even though they sought his counsel, which they did without going through the town manager, of which, Heather, you sent an email on August 24, 2023 to Bill Bernard, who's here today on another matter, that Nancy needs to contact you directly in order to use town council, which she took it upon herself to call town council and address that matter on her own, outside of, obviously, the purview of her duties, which is the issue at hand of which I speak, which she did not, in this case, I'm sorry, in order to use town council, which she did not, in this case, basically contact Heather. And in that same email, Heather, I think that it's very clear, and I have these with me, so if anybody would like to see them, you told Bill at the DPW that you control day-to-day operations and maintenance, and to remind Nancy, but you've been silent. What we can see here is clear, Mr. Jeffries, that you are working in a dual capacity as a selectman and a cemetery commissioner. I have lots more emails, Mr. Jeffries, however, I only have 3 minutes to speak. Nancy Yasko has also sent you an email thanking you for taking her under your wing. I have that email as well. And in its context, not just the word of the email, but the context of all the emails, it is quite damaging. Mr. Jeffries, I also have many compromise emails that you sent and have received, and I also have an FOIA request right now to get all your emails from 2019 on forward, which I know you're aware of. I got to communicate today. That will cost me $550 to find the answers to what I believe that is going on here. I am going to say this one more time, that the Cemetery Commission does have no superintendent's maintenance and management powers. These are reserved for the town manager and the DPW. The commission itself is duplicitous in duties, and therefore it is severable. If I just may, what work is actually the Cemetery Commission really doing? Mr. Jeffries, as you so clearly had stated to me, there is an opening on the Cemetery Commission. Well, you've already applied for that position because you're working in that capacity. And I don't say that in jest, I say that in the emails, You even phoned the chief of police for the Cemetery Commission while the chief was on vacation. You called him on his personal cell phone after I spoke to you about Nancy's aggressive behavior toward myself and my wife at the Cemetery Commission meeting on November 30th at 9:25 a.m. when she had called Elaine Peterson, who then used another private line to call the police, and nothing was ever done publicly, was it? We were exercising a constitutionally protected right under the open meeting law. We are protected in those constitutional rights, not to be prohibited from that under the color of law by having the police called on us, particularly by town officials, for no reason whatsoever. An investigation has been completed by the police department, and if anybody would like to see, I have posted, that is a letter from Chief Gamble that says that you called him on his personal cell phone while he was on vacation. Matter of fact, I think he told me he was golfing when he received the call, and he ignored the first call. Okay? So what I'm trying to express here, okay, is that it's not, it is not the Cemetery Commission, okay, that I see here, okay? And please, this is kind of controversial in town right now, okay, and I understand, okay? It is not the Cemetery Commission who's doing their job. It's everybody else doing the Cemetery Commissioner's jobs for them. Mr. Jeffries to the town manager, the cemetery superintendent, DPW director, because the jobs are already reserved for all those people. The Cemetery Commission has no authority. What do? Sign a voucher, send it over to Karen. Karen writes up the bill, and then she signs it. And then now she wants bills to go to her and not to go to Bill, but Bill's the one that has to authorize the payment of those bills and get them over to her. So what we're doing is we're adding red tape into our government, okay? So that being said, I just want to make it clear that, you know, the DPW director, the cemetery superintendent, okay, the lawyer, yourself, Heather, everybody seems to be doing the Cemetery Commission's job. And just to clarify, okay, if I make a statement that something is unethical or somebody is unethical, rest assured, I will not make a statement in a public room that will be libelous towards anybody else. I will not write it, I will not slander, I will not do. Why? Because that's been done to me in this town already, and I have the documentation. And I will just clarify with that I have that documentation. So I would request that if anybody posts anything online or says
your time
anything
is
in a
over,
group,
Mr.
that they understand that
Bowen.
if I say unethical, I have the evidence for the unethical behavior, and I'd
Mr.
like
Bowen,
to
your time
conclude
has
and say
expired.
thank you very much for your time. Thank you, and I know I went over a little bit longer, and I appreciate you allowing me to go over a little bit longer, Mr. Jeffries. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bowen. All right, do we have any announcements this evening?
Just that the town meeting warrant is open now until March 18th at 4 PM. Anyone who has an article to submit must be submitted by that time, and to the select board's office to Elaine, well, won't be Elaine at that time, so the select board's office.
Thank you. All right, communications from other boards. So we have a request, as was kind of alluded to in the public comments. I speak to many boards and committees, and I have been working with the Regional Economic Development Committee, and Josie, who's here with us this evening, is a part of that. And so they do have a request for $2,500, and so I would just ask Josie, if you wouldn't mind coming forward and just kind of explaining the nature of the request and any kind of background information you want to provide and how this will benefit the residents of Lunenburg.
My name is Josie Gilchrist. I'm speaking on behalf of Lunenburg, representing the First Middlesex District Economic and Community Development Collaborative. I sit on the seat representing Lunenburg when I'm at that table. So good news, I got the number wrong and it's less. So I asked you for 2,500, it's actually 1,200. Significantly less. That's the number for our contribution that they're asking for to put towards a website that acts as a hub. For those that don't know, the purpose of this collaborative is to amplify rural towns in the First Middlesex District for their individual character and offerings leading to economic and community growth. This website would be a hub where all of the First Middlesex District could be found with all of our offerings for each individual town, our character, and events and open spaces and whatever else Lunenburg has to offer. It would just be a hub in collaboration with the other towns. $1,200 is what we're asking for to put towards that from the town of Lunenburg. Other towns in the First Middlesex District are also discussing how to collect $1,200 to put towards this website. We're still learning and gathering ideas as to the visual of that. I understand if a decision can't be made today because I don't have a presentation about what exactly that website would look like. We're still gathering estimates, but the estimate that we have known to us right now is $1,200, which would be our contribution towards that website. Are there any questions about that?
I want to add just additional information.
Yeah.
Before we open to questions. You know, one of the great things about this new regional group is really identifying that some of the hardships that we face as smaller towns is that when you compare us to cities, they have multiple representatives, and so their voice gets amplified. And so part of the hope is to help bring some of the communities together, so that way the needs that are in the region can help be put together and amplified as one voice. I know that the intent of this is also looking at some of the regional offerings and really trying to move in the direction of having the neighborhood, so to speak, be more collaborative. So that way, the goal being that if someone wants to come out to North Central Mass, that there can be a singular website for them to go to that can identify all the different offerings that every community has to offer. You know, in Lunenburg, we have, Stillman's Farm, we have, obviously Powellstone and Gravel, we have some good restaurants here as well, we have apple picking, so there's a whole bunch of different stuff that we can do or that we already do, and the intent is to really help amplify the community activities that happen as well as the businesses that are in town to help, really as I think part of the research has identified that a lot of people that are coming out to this region are coming from the Boston area, or they're coming from a more urban area, and so they're looking for some of the activities that we kind of casually do regularly. And so, looking at this regionally of what can everyone contribute to make this work,
Yes.
$1,200 to me seems reasonable, but I will go to the board with any questions the board may have.
And just to add to that as a little bit of a visual of what the website has, it would be, when I think of Lunenburg, I think of agriculture or recreational opportunities, events. The community is a really big thing here. There's so many events that are happening, but it's difficult to go over here and look at this person's list of events and then over here. So it would really be just a centralized hub to find all of that collective information. So agriculture, local farms, petting zoos, farmers markets, delivery services that people may not be aware of in Lunenburg, recreation, trail systems, bike riding, horse trails, ATV, having information like that, family events, so school dances, vendor markets, parades, holiday events, the Christmas tree lighting, anything that you can think of that is, when you think of Lunenburg, you think of these things that just happen every year. It would just be a hub for people to be able to find that and to celebrate it with us, to invite outsiders in to celebrate these things that we may just know of because we've been here forever. It is not so much a tourist place, but it is an escape, like you said, for the people traveling from Boston. Every day I go out across the street on the trails right across from our house and take my dog for a walk, and it's peaceful and I hear nothing. And in Boston, that's a getaway. That's an experience. So we're really trying to amplify those things that we already have. But that $1,200 would really help in amplifying that and celebrating the character that Lunenburg has. So,
All right.
are there any questions?
Any questions from the board?
If I understand correctly, we're not voting on this tonight? You're going to come back and give a presentation? Did I hear that right?
I think that we're trying to identify tonight what we need to vote on this.
Yeah, if you would like more information, as we collect it, I can give that to you. We are, I just want to be transparent on that, we are still gathering estimates for this website. I more so want it to be on your radar. The $1,200 is the estimate that we have currently, split between all the communities in the First Middlesex District. So that's the number I have right now. We're collecting 2 more estimates that will come in and we'll compare them, but I really do think that they'll be very similar to that amount. So I don't know how that works on your end with that information that I have. It's not set in stone, but it's the general direction we're going.
Yeah, I think I'm trying to read from the board this evening, openness to this request if we are, looking, if this is something that the board is open to funding from this source, and then kind of what is needed to move forward. Do you have any questions, Mr. Lund?
I will say that on its face, I have no problem entertaining it. I mean, I'm just hearing it today for the first time, and I'm hearing it orally, and I have nothing to review after
Sure.
this except play this again. So I would hope there'd be a proposal, a written proposal
Sure.
that has some of the details. I would also say that, because it's on the agenda, it was 2,500, now you're saying 1,200,
Yeah.
that's good, but you're also saying it's not set. So from your perspective, I want you to be sure what it is, because we don't want to, kind of come back.
Yes.
So I would say that, I want to hear from anybody who has a proposal for the town for the money. I just want it a little more formalized. So I appreciate the informal presentation tonight.
Yeah.
But,
As long as it's on your radar, I think is what we're going for right now, that you will entertain it, and that's information I can bring back and ask for solid, 3 separate estimates and a visual as to what that hub would look like.
I do have a question. How many towns have you spoken with in the First Middlesex District, and how many are?
I believe there's 6 represented.
And are they all seem amenable to it?
They're all open to it, and I believe they're all in the same position, where it's yes, we're aware of it, we would like to do this. We obviously cannot promise $1,200 when actually you're going to come back and ask for a couple hundred more, and that makes sense. Just as long as it's on your radar and on the other town's radar, it seems like everybody is pulling in the same direction.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we also have Selectman Uzzolo, who's online. Caesar, do you have any questions?
Yeah, just a couple. Hi, Josie. Thanks
Hi.
for joining. Can you say the name of the organization again so I can look it up without having to watch it?
Sure. That is the First Middlesex District Economic and Community Development Collaborative, and we're working on a better name.
Maybe
need a
this is
mnemonic.
stupid question, but is this a public or a private organization? Is this like the private, business organization?
This is towns in the First Middlesex District that have just come together, and it's in, I would say, the infant stage of formatting. So, right now,
Then, because I wanted to know if you guys already have a target audience, you guys are on social media or whatever, just to have an idea of how many people it would reach. But that's kind of irrelevant right now.
yeah, we are not there yet. I think that we are at the stage of working on the name, the mission statement, and logo, so we can have all of that information and the website ready to launch at the same time. And then the website would be one of the first places. We are communicating with the North Central Chamber of Commerce for a way to do almost a pre-launch with the website they already have up, where they host a lot of events already. A conversation will be had with them about that soon.
All right.
Okay, this is a question for the folks on the stage, and it's mainly for the public. How much ARPA funds do we currently have available, just to put this into perspective?
Yeah, Heather's going to pull the exact number up, I'm guessing, but it's about $58,000, and then there's 101 in interest that we're identifying how that can be expended.
Okay. Well, that's all my questions. Thanks, Josie.
Thank you.
I know you grabbed the mic, but I think.
No, I
Thank you very
hadn't
much.
opened it before.
Thank you so much, Josie, for coming forward with this. And I think the message that goes back is that the board is, as Mr. Alonso indicated, is open to this, and I think, certainly is exciting for our community, and we welcome the formal proposal. All right, thank you. All right, we're going to go back to our agenda here. So we have a public hearing for Conrad's. I don't see anyone in attendance, but I just want to call, is anyone in attendance for the public hearing for Conrad's prior to us opening it and reading it? All right, anyone in attendance? Okay.
Mr. Chair, just before you start, I would like to ask, through you to the town manager, was the establishment notified?
Yes. And they actually came in just the other day to drop off their workers' comp certificate and said they would be attending,
And they would be attending?
that they would be attending.
So
So they are aware.
we see that they're a little late, so I will call for this again. So we're going to go to next on the agenda, our 7:25, which puts us kind of on schedule. So this is a limousine license application for George Cariala, doing business as Medigo Transportation LLC at 313 Reservoir Road. If I can ask the applicant to come forward, we've received the application. If you wouldn't mind just giving us an overview of what it is that you're looking to do and why you're in front of us today.
All right, so my name is George Carilla. Thank you for having me here today, and thanks for coming out. So my idea with the limousine license is to start a non-emergency medical transportation company. As somebody who works in the emergency room, I notice a lot of people who come in using the ambulance system for needs that are not required for an emergency response. I've noticed that we have a high demand of patients that require assistance where they can just need maybe some ambulatory assistance with a ride to a hospital, whether it be an assisted living facility. My idea to start this business would obviously, yes, to be help the community minimize the amount of calls that ambulances are receiving. I was excited to hear that Lunenburg does not have a non-emergency medical transportation company within the community. So I think that would help the community kind of stand amongst the surrounding communities in the idea that we are also helping out the patients that are not able to get rides accessibly to other facilities where they might need medical attention. My business will also be open to others in the community, whether they need to go to the grocery store or just other essential living requirements for them to get by.
That's a good overview.
Yeah, I thought it was fair.
So a little bit about yourself. Are you from Lunenburg?
Yeah, so born and raised in Lunenburg. I grew up playing football for Bengals in middle school, and then worked my way up to the Lunenburg Blue Knights. I've been a name that many people would know around in Lunenburg just because of sports. I've played All-Stars representing Lunenburg, the football game in Worcester. Growing up, I wanted to become a physician's assistant. I went to the University of New Hampshire to study biomedical sciences. At my time there, I was preparing myself to work at a hospital to get hours to attend a physician assistant school. As time progressed, I started to get familiar with the work of a physician assistant and realized maybe that route wasn't for me. Whereas where I had found the idea of the non-emergency medical transportation business. A lot of research into it, I realized how much I could grow, how much I could help the community. Working at the hospital, I love I love the reward of going home knowing that I did impact a person's life, whether it be one person or 100 people that day. Doing this helps me kind of stay integrated within the healthcare community, whereas instead of PA school, I can still kind of keep a fair, close hand to healthcare in that sense.
Okay. I have several questions, but I'm going to turn first to Selectman Nizzolo, who's joining us remotely, and then we'll go down the line here on the members in attendance. Mr. Nizzolo?
Sure. So it looks like you've answered a bunch of my questions already. So it's a new business that you want to start. Do you want to run the business in any other communities or just Lunenburg?
So as Lunenburg doesn't have too many facilities with medical facilities, such as hospitals or assisted livings, my ability to be based out of Lunenburg would help our residents make their way over to communities where they have more facilities for healthcare, you know, whether that be a clinic or just a pharmacy where they need a prescription to be picked up.
Okay. I was going to ask you too if you had any medical background or training. You kind of spoke to that. Did you also say in the beginning that you were working at a hospital in addition to the PA school, or?
Yes, I received my emergency medical technician license in 2021. After that, I started working as an emergency medical technician in the emergency room
Yep.
at Leominster Hospital. I've gained about more than 2 years of experience there.
Please be sure just to speak into the mic.
I've gained over 2 years of experience in the emergency room, working more than about like 50 hours a week, just driven to pick up the experience and not really miss out on anything that they would see, whether I leave, or just kind of picking up on every little detail that I can get.
Big condition.
Okay? Any follow-up to that, Mr. Nizzola?
Yeah, sorry, wasn't sure what was going on in the room. I saw in one of the correspondences that we received that you also are going to be working with someone else. Who's that person? Sorry if I missed that here.
Yeah, once more, I didn't hear that.
It says that you're also going to be working, you have a coworker as well. I was just wondering who that was, someone that you've worked with or, are related to, or...
Yeah, so that other person would be my mother. I've explained the whole business to her, and she actually loved the idea to start this business, so I'm glad she's support behind my back.
And she also would be a driver, I'm assuming?
Yes.
Okay. Does she have any medical training, licenses, or anything?
She does not have medical training, but she, growing up, she always helped her mother kind of with medical appointments and just making sure she's taking care of her prescriptions and taking them routinely.
Okay. And it looks like you have good driving records. I saw that. Have you submitted the necessary insurance, like confirmation of insurance that you need?
Yeah, so I was waiting for this meeting to get the insurance started. I have a whole liability all set up with the workers' affidavit in hopes to receive the permit today. Tomorrow morning, I will be contacting my agent to start that up as soon as he gets that message.
Okay, thank you. And I guess one last question I have for the folks on the stage is that there's no like extra requirements or like a separate license other than a limousine license for like a medical courier. Is that right?
Once more?
He's asking
He's
us a
asking
question.
Oh, sorry.
He's not asking, my understanding, he's applying for a limousine license, not anything medical, although he has said it is for medical.
It's mostly about like just policies and licenses. It's just kind of surprising to me that there isn't one specifically for like something that's medical. You would think that there'd be like extra requirements, like medical training, but
I don't-
whatever. that's
I don't
my own
think,
thoughts.
I don't believe I'll ask him directly. I mean, are you offering medical services or just transportation services?
So it's just transportation service. It could be looked at as like an Uber service,
Right.
but it's designed to locate the patients that are individuals that are looking for medical appointments or medical facilities such as dialysis if they need
Right.
be. But
So I think
I
that answer,
understand. it is just a little surprising that there's no like necessary medical certificates. But anyway, I'm sort of derailing this now, so I'll pass it on to anyone else that wants to ask questions.
Selectman Imke?
So I can just follow up maybe on where Caesar was going. I think it's a little bit of a slippery slope when you get into non-emergency medical transport, because you can, someone wants to get a ride for a chemo appointment. They're very, very ill. Something could happen on the ride. So being able to have clear boundaries on what type of transport you're willing, what type of patient or what degree of medical condition that you are willing to transport, if that makes sense. Because I can see someone, I mean, I've run into this, trying to get a ride to Boston Hospital for someone who couldn't sit up. They needed an ambulance from here, wouldn't transport to Boston. I could see someone reaching out, if they knew about your business, calling you for that sort of thing, and they may not be they really may need an ambulance. Something could happen on the way. So that can become a difficult thing to manage. Have you thought about that? Like, how are you going to screen, basically? people that you're comfortable transporting for these types of medical appointments?
So yeah, based on that, so we, as the company will grow, as the company will start, we will always ask what type of service they're looking for. We are not an emergency
Yeah.
service. We have to deny all type of short of breath, chest pain, severe symptoms of somebody who will need an emergency room, like a room within the emergency room. Emergency department. We're more designed to assist the patient, individuals to get to their appointments with supply in our vehicles that may hold oxygen. Whereas if they were to order an Uber, they're just really just kind of just giving them a ride. Where my service would be to assist the patient into the facility, to properly make sure the patient exits and enters the vehicle with care, not kind of like a drop off or pick up and drop off. It's more within the guidelines of giving individuals that are found to be going to dialysis appointments regularly the comfortability of finding somebody who works in the medical field and has an emergency medical technician license and has seen the numerous cases of what is more critical and what is not. Like I said, anybody who is looking for our service will be informed that we are not an emergency response team. We are a group that will help patients get to their medical appointments in a more caring manner than any other
I
transportation
think in
business.
general, there is a need for this. People just don't have transport. You see it on social media. Anyone give me a ride to my doctor's appointment? Very routine things. I guess I would just caution on keeping it to the routine. So what type of vehicle do you have, and how many? Is it wheelchair accessible?
Right, so right now, we're starting with 2 4-door vehicles. We are working with ambulatory patients at the start. As I begin to grow, I plan to get a wheelchair accessible van. I actually plan to get multiple, where I'm just only going to use those vans as the method to transport all individuals that want that service.
And what areas would you service? Like, would you take someone into MGH?
No. So I'm staying within the communities that surround us, where so we're based in Lunenburg. Leominster. Leominster has multiple medical facilities to pick up and drop off patients in Fitchburg, and Ayer, and Gardner, and just surrounding us. I'm not planning on going out to the city. As I did a lot of research, I've noticed that the city has many transportation companies where I'm more...
Not out here.
Yeah, not out here. So, I mean, starting this here in Lunenburg kind of gives an easier access for... obviously, everybody's going to need a service like this. So, to give them this type of service now would give them a better... feel more comfortable to live in a location like this, and so family members would be... So I would say they would be supportive, because I know I've seen that a lot of children will be at work and they don't have that time to take in care and to bring their relatives over to their appointments. So to have a service that is based off of that would be ideal for the community that surrounds us.
Okay, and then my last question, and it's not necessarily for you, maybe someone on the board will know. I saw in the limo license policy must apply for permit in each city, town they wish to operate. Does that include if you were to pick up in Fitchburg, that they would need a permit for Fitchburg? I don't know how to interpret that statement.
It's where they're based out of.
Just where they're based, so they can service other towns and pick up, and they're still clear. Okay.
Those other municipalities may have policies that if you're going to pick up, as opposed to being a destination, if you're going to pick up, you may have to have a license in those areas too.
I assume you would offer a round trip,
Right.
so you would offer
Yeah.
pickups.
Right.
Each
It's the
city and
pickup
town
point.
has their own
Right,
rules.
so we can't speak to, it's not the drop-off. You can pick up somebody here and drop off somebody at a medical facility, in anywhere, but to pick up a person at a residence, those other municipalities, whether it's a town or a city, may have their own rules, and I would encourage you to investigate those.
Yeah, I did hear about that, and I took the liberty of going to Leominster to test that out, and they said that if I was to do that, I'd have to hit everywhere in Massachusetts, if I decided to go everywhere in Massachusetts, which didn't seem logical to them for me to bring it up, but I did want to mention it because it was something that came up, and I did want to be ready as soon as I was to get all my permits. Yeah, I don't see why I would be required to get licenses in every single town that I was going to operate in. For me to pick up somebody in Leominster and to drop them off in Leominster, or like I was saying in the past, or in the beginning, Leominster did say I just was required to get the license from the town that the address of the business is located. A shorter answer for you.
Well, you know, all I'm saying is I don't know their rules, so you.
Yeah, no, they said.
You investigate them and say that, and that's
Yeah.
their rule, that's good.
No, and of course, yeah, I'm going to take time to go to other towns as well to make sure that makes sense for them as well, so that I can kind of be on board with everyone. Understand?
I have two questions. First of all, have you read the limousine license bylaws in town?
Yes,
Okay, and you understood them, there are no questions?
yes.
Okay. So the only follow-up I have is, I'll just phrase it in a simple question, because this has come up from several of my fellow select board members. Do you plan to offer any medical services in your company?
Such as like,
Any
CPR?
medical services, as opposed to any transportation services?
Can you kind of explain that a little further?
Well, that's gonna be something that you're gonna have to explain.
Yeah.
Because you're asking us for a limousine license, and we could grant you the license. I mean, more than likely, you will get the license, I don't know. But the questions that my colleagues asked are about if something happens that they suspect, or they think, or they're led to believe that you provide medical services, not just transportation services in your business, and something would happen, you would be liable. So I would make it very clear, I understand the niche you're going to.
Yeah.
But if I were you, and it's just one bit of advice, I'd put a big asterisk somewhere saying, we are offering transportation services only to medical facilities. We do not offer medical services in our rides.
Right.
So the fact that you want to get out and help somebody in or not, that's not a medical service, right? That's just, you could say
Yeah,
that's a
to be
customer
honest, I
service.
was thinking about that. I wanted to just
But
make
if you
sure
start
that-
saying you're going to provide oxygen, that could be a medical service.
Right.
And then you're going to be liable if something happens.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just a word of advice. You seem like a nice guy,
Yeah.
and it seems like a really good business plan. I just want to caution you that the liability that was raised is a real one.
Right. No, I totally understand. Obviously, yeah, even working at the hospital, to administer anyone oxygen is technically giving medication. You are 100% right. The idea to keep oxygen, it's like a facility holding on to like an AED. The oxygen thing, as I'll look further into it, might not be an idea for my business, yes. But I just would like to comfort the idea to other people that use this service is that we can deal with patients that see this, that have medical problems where if we notice something right away, we pull over to just call 911 immediately so that they can automate their emergency response team so that they can do their pickup. So in which we would kind of stop, hold back, kind of just watch, make sure everything is okay until police and emergency systems arrive to the scene. So,
That's the only caution I have.
Yeah, no, I
otherwise,
appreciate
it
you
seems like
asking that.
all-
Yes.
All the business stuff is in order.
No,
I
you
mean,
are, it is technically medication.
There's one last point. Even if you were to go so far as to say, hey, this is my business, but to make you feel at ease, I'm a trained EMT, that would imply to somebody
I would be
that
perfect,
they
yeah.
have potentially medical services available. You would be wise to make sure that that is made clear, that you are not offering that.
Right, right. It's more an idea of making sure that in my scope of practice, to make sure that any service that an individual asks for, I'll be able to know whether we'd be able to handle that or not.
Okay.
You know, so where someone who doesn't really work in the health field, they can't really assess how critical somebody's medical request is for the transportation within their medical request. Yeah, I would be able to turn away individuals to say, no, I'm sorry, I think you'd be more comfortable getting a transportation service from an ambulance, an emergency ambulance system. And, yeah, just moving. Yeah.
So I think your request regarding the limousine is pretty straightforward, and I'm going to support it. I'm going to want to do a conditional license, though, if the board's in majority agreement, which is that we don't give you the license until you demonstrate that you have the insurance. So I know that you had mentioned this kind of in reverse, but we need the insurance first. But, you know, with a conditional approval, it says you're approved once you give us that proof. So it's one and the same. It's not like you're going to go out there and spend, you know, $1,500 or $2,000. Well, this insurance is going to be more costly than that. But spend a couple $1,000s on insurance without the guarantees. You know, I think my colleagues have vocalized my primary concerns, which is that, you know, this is a limousine license, not a medical anything license. And so I would just caution, as my colleagues have already cautioned, that you want to be crystal clear that you're not providing medical services. I understand where you're coming from, though, and that you recognize, working in a hospital, this need, that when patients get dropped off from MART or other services, that sometimes there's a wait, and sometimes they have to sit there and wait for, you know, the bus to come back, and no one's sitting there waiting with them. That sometimes with Uber, you know, not everyone can, I can't figure out how to use the app Uber, and I'm not that old, so I understand that other people can't use it either, but I also am not on social media. I can't figure out Snapchat either. I don't understand it. Nonetheless, my primary concerns are going to be how many vehicles you have at the property that are for commercial purposes, and once you get to a certain limit, that way your neighbors are not looking at residential properties. Your property is zoned residential, I'm assuming in a Reservoir Road that it is.
Yes.
So, you know, you're going to need to speak to the building commissioner about the limits for how many vehicles, non-residential vehicles, you can have on site. And roughly when you get past 2 is when you're going to need to have a commercial location.
Yeah.
You know, obviously you have to monitor your own income. You know, is your model working? You'll make those adjustments, you know. Why would someone, out of curiosity, just so you can have the floor to make your sales pitch, why would someone call you at higher cost than Uber?
Once
If
more?
you're not providing medical services, which you're not, why would someone call, you know, Medigo Transportation instead of Uber?
So as a non-emergency medical transportation service, we are able to become vendors with insurance companies, and insurance companies have a plan for their patients to use a non-emergency medical transportation company.
Okay.
So this is really just the
Insurance.
insurance paying
Got it.
for the individuals. And like I said, I'm more based on the idea to help out a non-emergency medical transportation,
Yep.
someone who wants to use that type of service. So, yeah, as a vendor for an insurance company, I think they would probably go ahead and use me and kind of continue to grow.
Yeah, I thought you were going to say that, because
Yeah.
I thought that the payment system here is not coming from individuals, that it's
Yeah,
coming
yeah.
from a corporation. All right. It's pretty straightforward to me. I think what we need to be clear about is that we're giving if the board agrees, it's a limousine license, not a medical anything license, that there's no authorization in here to provide medical treatment to anybody. And in fact, you really should not use a limousine license to provide medical treatment to anybody. So, you know, I know that you're going to have to go before other boards, as Mr. Alonso mentioned. You know, other communities do have their own rules. I think you might want to be a little quicker when the question of, are you providing any medical interventions? You probably just want to, as your mother's saying behind you, no.
Yeah.
You know,
In bold,
transportation
it'll
only.
be in bold on the website.
All right.
In bold.
With that, are there any final remaining questions from any members of the board? All right.
I just had a question.
Yes.
Did you discuss the fees as far as what those are?
The fees for,
Service?
like the rates. So I had looked at the rates. I know that I have to be kind of around the same rates as other services that are similar to my business in other towns. So I did look at the board for the rates. It starts out at 30, and then it kind of grows based off mileage. It'll grow based off of, at the time when I get the wheelchair accessible vans, it'll grow off the type of service they're looking for. And at that point, everything kind of just gets calculated throughout the day, and it kind of just depends on what time they're looking for, or just like how far in general, just the mileage.
Okay,
So
thank you.
all that is kind of will be set.
All right. You seem like a pretty smart young man. I'm sure that if your business is successful, it's going to grow, and you'll be moving into those urban markets that make more money.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
More
It excites me.
quickly.
It excites me.
Is there, I would ask for the board to, if they're for the motion, make it conditional.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the limousine license application for George Carriola doing business as Medigo Transportation LLC at 313 Reservoir Road, conditional on him providing us proof of insurance and liability and all other insurances required by the policy, the limousine policy, as stated.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any additional discussion? All right, this could be a roll call vote. Mr. Nuzolo.
Aye.
Selectman Imke.
Aye.
Selectman Alonso.
Aye.
And an aye for myself. So we will sign this today, but we'll hold it until you provide the office with the insurance, and then we will, have it. And thank you, first of all, thank you for being a Lunenburg resident, for remaining in the community, and for choosing to do business in the community. I'm also a Lunenburg graduate, so it speaks very well of our community when those of us who were raised here, went through the school system, and find an opportunity to give back. Speaks well of you, speaks well of your family, and speaks well of all those who came in contact with you during your academic career.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Good luck.
guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Oh, I got it. Thanks. All right. Yep. All right, so we have two appointments. Both of them should be quick, but we're just gonna go a little out of order here for something that should be fun. So we're gonna go to interviews, appointments, reappointments, and resignations. This is an exciting one for us tonight. Ratification of the town manager's appointment of the executive assistant to the town manager and select board, Annie Aubrey.
And Annie is with us here tonight as well, but I'll just preface any questions the board has for her. So we posted Elaine's position on January 8th. Elaine is retiring after multiple years for the town, so thank you, Elaine. So this was posted on the website, social media, town bulletin boards, Indeed, MMA, the municipal assistant listserv, and the Ledger, Mass Hire, and North Central Chamber of Commerce. We received approximately 30 applications, and a total of 6 applicants for extended interviews, with 1 withdrawing and 5 accepted an interview. The applicant that proved the best fit for the position was Annie. Annie was hired this past May as the administrative assistant for the planning board, and prior to that has many years of customer service experience. In the absence of a land use director, Annie has continued to keep the office in order and productive. Her work history includes experience in grant writing and project management. Annie has expressed an eagerness to grow within the town of Lunenburg, and we are excited to have her as a resource for the town as well. So I'm asking the board to ratify this appointment tonight.
All right. Well, I know I've had the opportunity to meet Annie. I know she probably looked at the agenda, figured we weren't going to get to her till about 9 o'clock. So I wouldn't fault her if she's not on right now. Nonetheless, Annie, I mentioned in the town manager when this role was posted that, once they're, at the point of making a decision, that I want to meet with whoever is going to be recommended prior to us discussing the ratification. When she told me it was going to be Annie, I'm like, I don't need to meet with Annie, I already know. Annie, I think, has a very infectious smile, a really great personality. I ran into her recently out and about, and it was just so wonderful to see her. And I think, part of what I think is required in these jobs and in this role is to be able to work with the public. Sometimes, people are upset when they reach out to us. They're looking for a solution to their problem, and they're coming to us, they're coming to the town manager for assistance. and resolving that problem. And so what's important is always to make people feel welcome. I think Annie has demonstrated an ability to do that, making people feel welcome, making them feel heard, and that helps advance whatever their concerns are. So I am super excited for the internal promotion here and working with Annie for the remainder of my term, which I will again note ends in 15 months. But I look forward to working with Annie over that time period, and I will turn to the board for any questions or comments the board may have. Selectman Nuzolo.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna second everything you just said. I haven't interacted with Annie too much, but the interactions that I have, I really loved her energy and her positivity. I've enjoyed our interactions. So, pending this vote, of course, I'm potentially excited to work with her more in this role. And I'm also really excited to see that we're filling this role internally. So, I think it's really good to see, so.
All right. Selectman Imke.
I haven't had the pleasure of meeting Annie in person, but I've seen her on the recordings of the planning board meeting. So I also like the idea of someone staying in town, moving around. I know it creates a vacancy for the planning board, but I think that hopefully will be filled quickly. And I look forward to actually meeting Annie in person and working with her.
So as last, I'll say ditto, and so it's nice to see somebody start with the town and then progress quickly to another job of higher responsibility, and that just speaks volumes to how well you work with people, Annie, so continued success.
Thank you all so much.
And you're welcome, Annie, to offer any kind of comments you want, but you also don't have to, other than thanking us. I know it kind of puts you on the spot.
No worries at all. I just wanted to express my excitement for this, as well as thanking Elaine for the time that I was able to work with her. She was a huge resource and a big kind of inspiration on when the role became available. So I'm very excited.
All right. Not hearing any other questions, I move to ratify the town manager's appointment of executive assistant to the town manager and select board for Annie Aubrey.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any additional discussion? All right, it's going to be a roll call vote. Selectman Nuzolo.
Aye.
Selectman Imke.
Aye.
Selectman Alonso.
Aye.
And an aye for myself. All right, the appointment is ratified. And when did this go into effect?
Immediately.
Tomorrow, right?
Yes, and just to, because it was noted about the vacancy at the planning board, so we'll advertise that internally immediately as well, because that's a requirement of the collective bargaining agreement, because that position is unionized. And then if we get no applicants externally, but we did have a pool of applicants from this job search, so we would pull from that as well.
All right, and for continuity, it's great that Annie's going to have the opportunity to train alongside Elaine, and then whoever replaces Annie I'm sure Annie will step up and help train them too. So thank you, Annie, for coming forward, and we look forward to working with you more closely.
Thank you, you as well.
All right. We're going to go now. We're running a little behind schedule here. We knew coming into tonight that this was a loaded agenda. So we're going to go to, this should be a very brief meeting, 7:30, with DPW Director and Town Council to review and vote on the Flat Hill order of takings for the Flat Hill Road Culvert Project. And just to those at the Village at Flat Hill, this is unrelated to the Village at Flat Hill. This is much further down the street. And so, Bill, good to see you this evening.
Yeah, thank you. So just a little background, it's the Flat Hill Bridge over the Catacumenic Brook, right at Lake Shirley. We're getting ready to advertise the project, so there's utility lines directly over the bridge. So we have to move the telephone poles back upstream about 10 feet. So we need to take easements for that. So these two easements we're looking at tonight are those two properties where we have to move these back. This is essential that we do this. I don't think that they could construct the bridge with the overhead lines there. They need to bring in a crane. The new bridge is going to be concrete precast sections. They're 14 feet by 19 feet. So we need some space to maneuver those and with the crane, so this is pretty essential for us.
All right, so, well, it's not common for the board to exercise its power of eminent domain in which we are taking private property in some form or fashion, and I will go over that in the motion. But we're joined by town council, so I'll just ask town council to opine on a little bit of history and the impact of what we're doing here tonight.
So, thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Good to be with you again tonight. So, Bill summarized it quite well, and I'll commend Bill for his efforts because, as you might know, if you've had an opportunity to review any of the paperwork that I provided in advance of tonight's meeting, included with that paperwork are 2 pages of a plan or a map that shows this stretch of Flat Hill Road and specifically identifies, and it doesn't appear that I have screen sharing capabilities, but I trust that board members likely have the plan before them. Yep. It shows areas of these various properties on both the north and south sides of Flat Hill Road through which the town requires both permanent easements and then more comprehensive temporary easements for the purposes of the upcoming project. Bill was instrumental in communicating with these property owners and getting from 2 of the 4 property owners that are affected by these land uses voluntary conveyances of interest in their property. With respect to the 2 properties that are before you tonight, Bill did not have success in communications with one of these property owners. And with respect to the other property owner, while, as I understand it, and Bill, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but while Bill did have success in convincing or suggesting or negotiating with the property owner an acquisition of an interest in that owner's property, the property was subject and is subject to a mortgage, and that complicates things in the sense that the lender is required to sign off or partially release the land from the conveyance, and that can be a complicated and a very time-consuming process that often interferes with projects just like this. So as a result of all of that, what's before you tonight is a proposed order of taking. And again, if you've got the plan before you, you'll see that the 2 properties that are referenced in the notice tonight and referenced in the takings documentation I provided you are the 890 and the 914 Flat Hill Road properties. Those are both on the north side of Flat Hill Road. And again, you can see in the plan the temporary easement areas. I think that they're numbered 1 and 3. And then similarly, permanent easement areas 1 and 3. Those are the areas that are proposed for these eminent domain takings. And so the way that this process works, I think most of you are probably somewhat familiar with it, but I'll just describe it very briefly. There's a vote on the order of taking, which we've prepared for you. It references the 890 and 914 Flat Hill Road properties. It describes the temporary and the permanent easements individually by description and by reference to the plan that accompanies the order. And then if you proceed to the end of the order, there's a Schedule A to the order, which identifies each of those properties, identifies the mortgagee that has an interest in each of the properties, and then it identifies the award, the monetary award. As you probably know, in exercising the town's power of eminent domain as a constitutional power, you're also required to pay just compensation for the interest in the property that you're taking, even if it's only a temporary interest, even if it's only an easement interest. So you'll see that the sums here that have been awarded, and this is not based on the town's own judgment, it's based upon appraisals that were done of these properties and of the easement interest that's being taken in these properties. The sums that are being awarded are $3,000 for the temporary and permanent easements in the 890 Flat Hill Road property and $2,100 for the easement interest in the 914 Flat Hill Road property. And again, that's reflected in Schedule A to the order. And that summarizes what we're proposing to do tonight. Once this order of taking is voted, the order gets recorded. My office will coordinate the sending of notices to the property owners, notifying them of their award, and they have the ability to accept that award. And the order of taking is effective upon recording with the Registry of Deeds. So even while that notice process and awarding of the the monetary sums is underway, the town can proceed with its project, and Bill can do what needs to be done to get that project underway.
All right, thank you for that, Adam. So I'm going to go ahead and make the motion, and then if we have any questions, we'll take them at that time. I'm hereby move that the Select Board acquire by eminent domain for the necessary health and welfare of the inhabitants of the town of Lunenburg for municipal purposes, more specifically for improvements to the bridge on Flat Hill Road over Catacoonamug Brook, as authorized by Article 10 of the Town of Lunenburg Special Town Meeting of November 16th, 2021, and that it further authorize the board's chair, Michael Ray Jeffries, to execute and enter into any and all documents necessary to effectuate the acquisition of the following property. A temporary easement located at 890 Flat Hill Road, Lunenburg, Massachusetts, depicted as temp easement area number 3, area about 1,803 square feet, and a permanent easement located at 890 Flat Hill Road, Lunenburg, Massachusetts, depicted as perm easement area number 3, area about 667 square feet. On the plan entitled Easement Plan of Land in Lunenburg, Massachusetts, prepared by VHB Inc., comprised of 2 total sheets dated January 6, 2023, and to be recorded with the Worcester North District Registry of Deeds, together with the order of taking, and a temporary easement located at 914 Flat Hill Road, Lunenburg, Massachusetts, depicted as temp easement area number 1, area about 1,104 square feet, and a permanent easement located at 914 Flat Hill Road, Lunenburg, Massachusetts, depicted as perm easement area number 1, area about 81 square feet. On the plan entitled Easement Plan of Land in Lunenburg, Massachusetts, prepared by VHB Inc., comprised of 2 total sheets dated January 6, 2023, and to be recorded with the Worcester North District Registry of Deeds, together with the order of taking, and that still further, the board award damages for said eminent domain takings in the total amount of $5,100.00 to the affected record owners of said land, the amount per record owner being specified in the aforementioned order of taking.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any additional discussion?
I just have a question about the shape of the easements. Like, why the bizarrely irregular shapes? Since I don't have where the bridge is so.
Right. So it juts out, right? That's what you're looking at?
Yeah.
That's where the telephone poles are being moved back.
Gotcha.
So the existing poles just go back about 10 feet or so. That way the wires are out over the water instead of over the bridge.
Thank you.
All right. Any additional comments or questions? All right, this is going to be a roll call vote. Selectman Nuzzolo.
Aye.
Selectman Imke.
Aye.
Selectman Alonso.
Aye.
And an aye for myself, Selectman Jeffries. That is 4 in favor, 0 opposed. All right, I'm going to pass down to the board the 2 sheets that need to be signed. Please be sure to write your name underneath your signature on both. Thank you. Thank you, Bill. I know you're sticking around for this next conversation, too. All right, so to the residents of the village at Flat Hill, where'd it go? Thank you for being patient with us this evening as we are going to that appointment that's scheduled for 7:40. So this is a discussion on Flat Hill and Page Street drainage, and we're meeting with the Village at Flat Hill trustees regarding the drainage maintenance plan. So I'll call forward whoever will be representing VFH.
Good evening. My name is Wayne Garapi from 32 Cortlandt Circle. I'm a trustee.
All right, are you going to be joined this evening by any other trustees?
There's a trustee over here, Slew. But I'll be alone up here.
Okay, and you said William Garrity?
Wayne Garapi.
That's right, Wayne. Yeah. All the emails I've seen. All right, so Wayne, I know we've been wanting to meet with you guys for some time, and we had a couple meetings, and so, we're here. So one of the things that I thought, that I want to turn the floor over to you, but one of the things that we want to talk about, that we've talked about previously, is, what your plans or intentions are when it comes to the basin that you have on your property. I think we spent quite a bit of time discussing how it could potentially be contributing to the water issues that are being experienced on Flat Hill. So any information you can provide about kind of what you guys' next steps are, your timeline, that would be great.
Okay. What we'd like to do is get permission from the Conservation Committee to do the maintenance in the detention pond. And then upon completion of that, we'd like to have the town engineer come in and check the work. Then when he checks the work, he can do his calculation. And from there, we can make further arrangements.
That's straightforward. So you're looking for permission from Conservation on the cleanout. What's your
For the
schedule?
maintenance, the dredging, we call it.
Yep. What's your schedule looking like for that? What's your?
Well, if we got permission to do the maintenance, then we would go to the Powell, I think it's gravel and stone, or stone and gravel. That would be our choice for doing the work.
Okay.
And we would just schedule them to come in and dredge it.
All right. So you're,
So,
so you're looking to contract with Powell Stone and Gravel,
yes,
and your timeline is as soon as possible after the permission's granted?
yes, in their timeline and the weather. We want to use Powell because they're a Lunenburg town,
Yep.
here in Lunenburg. Also because they have enough equipment to do
All right,
what
and
needs to
then-
be done.
And then you're looking for the town engineer that we've hired to work on this project to come and inspect
Yes,
afterwards?
because the town felt better and the abutters, everybody would feel better if that was done, so we're in agreement.
All right, so is it fair to say, I don't want to put words in your mouth, is it fair to say that if Conservation grants you approval on, I'm going to make up some dates here, April the 1st, and Powell Stone and Gravel's ready to go on April the 15th, that you're going to be going on April the 15th?
Yes,
All right, and you fully expect that this work will be complete before the summertime, contingent upon the
the
approvals?
dredging,
The dredging?
yes,
Contingent upon the approvals from Conservation?
right.
All right. To the town manager, for this application, sometimes, have you guys already prepared the application to go before Conservation? What type of assistance do we provide, since we're the ones that are pushing for
We
this
would
to happen?
appreciate that.
I'm filling out the form.
Yeah.
I'm sure the conservation administrator can work with you on how to fill out the form.
Excuse me?
I'm sure the conservation administrator who works in the
Okay.
office over at Ritter would be able to help you fill out
All
the
right.
form if you have any questions.
Yep,
All right. So we can work with you to provide you that point of contact. We can email that over to you. That way you can set up a time to meet with the conservation administrator and then complete the paperwork that's required, and they'll schedule you for a meeting, so their process is going to take at least a month.
okay.
Okay. I'm going to stop there and turn to my colleagues for any comments from my colleagues or.
Could I have
did you-
one more thing?
Of course.
Is there any kind of a document you could give us? I have full faith in the town, but for some people that may say that you would use this to expand things in the neighborhood or whatever, like change things or this or that. I don't believe that you would.
It wouldn't be this board that does it anyway.
Okay,
But I think what you're asking for is you're looking for us to come to some kind of agreement that we're not going to use this opportunity to expand on our authority to give you guys additional requirements. That's what the
yes,
request is.
thank you.
basically.
Yes. We would appreciate that. I don't have any problem with the town. If you make an agreement, I think that you would stick to it, and we'll make an agreement, and we'll stick to it. If, for instance, the engineer's report comes back and there has to be further improvements that would make the detention pond work more proficiently, then we would need a little time to figure out a way to get there, but, we want to cooperate
I
fully.
appreciate hearing that. I'm going to pause and turn to my colleagues or the town manager for any comments before I offer any more.
I had a quick, I know that's a concern of yours about, or the associations, about any potential further responsibilities by doing this. I think the town cannot indemnify you from anything that you wouldn't be subject to any laws or bylaws or regulations of, though. So I just
Okay.
want that to be clear.
Yeah, I can, well, I asked for my colleagues, so I said I'll go last. Any other comments or questions?
So the document that was provided, the Village at Flat Hill Homeowners Association, the PDF, I'm assuming you're familiar with that?
Yes.
I'm presuming you presented that, okay. So, on the options of cleaning out the detention basin, you list 3 options. Which one are you talking about doing?
The 3, I'll have to get to that. I'm familiar with it, but it's
Okay.
been, we first want to do the dredging.
Well, there's no option that says dredging.
Okay,
So
let
I
me
just don't know
let me
which
get to
one.
that page, 1 second.
There's clean out the detention basin of vegetation, then B is clean out the detention basin to include vegetation and rocks,
Okay.
and then there's remove all material and rebuild.
It would be clean out the detention pond of the vegetation. We found out that we don't have rocks on the bottom. The detention pond is built on the ground, and that just has a buildup of vegetation and silt or whatever,
Okay, so option A.
Option
Okay.
A, thank you.
The second thing is there was the discussion, and again, I'm asking this mainly for clarification of communication, so everybody's on the same page. So there was talking about scoping the piping of the water collection, and you have it here that you don't believe this is required.
No, we don't, but we're not engineers. There's an engineer that helped do this, that's just someone
Okay.
that helps do it, but
Because I think part of what was part of the larger discussion from our engineers is that there may have been infiltration of groundwater into, cracks or leaks into the pipe itself, so that water was getting into the pipe from other places that shouldn't be, and that was discussed, and I know our engineers here, and we can ask him, but I just wanted to make sure that's not included in what you're looking to do.
no, not at the first part of it.
Okay.
What we'd like to do is when the engineer looks at the work, till then it's hypothetical, and when he looks and he says that he has done his calculations for the water going out, and he's taken a look at this or that. If we can improve it, we will over a period of time, but,
Okay.
until, we know that it's broken.
Right, well, I mean, the scope would be the part to know that it's broken. The scoping doesn't necessarily mean replacing, I mean, you wouldn't know it needs to be replacing until you scoped it, unless somebody
Well-
had some other magical way of knowing.
Like, everything's on the table, it's,
Yeah,
we could do that. If, for instance, the dredging works and everything's fine, water's coming in, water's going out properly, then that may not be necessary. If it's deemed it is, then, we just want to get along and make sure it's all working right, and, be able to let the people in the neighborhood know what's going on, how much it costs. So we would do more work as far as getting, do we need the scope, do we need this, do we need that? So until we,
And to your last point, or to your own last point about, putting other additional regulations, I will say from my perspective, that has never, from my perspective alone, has never been part of the subject matter. It was just trying to
I agree with
help the neighborhood and get people, alleviate a situation that is significantly affecting other residents. So, the language is the language, and whatever rights we have, and whatever rights you have, and I'm not looking at this as a way in, as a wedge to try to change that.
I believe that.
Thank you.
I agree, Mr. Alonso. Selectman Inman?
First, I want to thank you for coming forward and being cooperative.
Thank you.
It's very much appreciated.
Thank you for your patience on the board, too.
I guess, two questions. One, I'm still a little unclear on the 2 options. Clean out detention
I'm
basin
sorry,
of
I just can't
vegetation
find that page in my
versus,
notes.
it's the second page of the PDF we were
It's
given.
after the diagram, so there's the map,
This
It's the next page after the
second
map.
page.
Oh, okay.
It's option A, B, and C.
Bottom third.
Under the category, what we still have to accomplish.
Sorry about this.
That's okay. Maybe, I don't know if
I
sharing,
don't
I
think
don't
I
know.
have it. Okay, I got it.
Oh, never mind.
Okay,
That's not
thank
going
you.
to share very well anyway. It's too small.
Thank you. Okay. Okay, with, we would probably be like for the detention basin for the category A is probably more what it would cost to dredge it. And then, moving on from there, you know, we wouldn't have to take out the rocks because they don't exist. We found that out. Whatever the engineer finds out from there, I mean, we would have to meet and go over it and figure out what we can do.
Which leads me to my next question is, so you said you would have the town engineer, or, well, it's not the town, our engineer come and inspect after. Would the engineer have input on the scope of work and the requirements of the work that PAL will be doing? Will he be able to provide
Like a
input?
full inspection?
Not a full, just provide, like, I know we talked,
We
I
would
think it's
like
called
any
a
information he could
standpipe.
provide us with to improve it.
Okay, because
You know,
the
is that what you
standpipe,
mean?
I'm looking to, I forget his name. I know there was like a hole in the standpipe, there was, vegetation,
Yes.
yes, thank you.
Things like that can be looked into if that's, you know,
He may say, this needs to be replaced. and-
yes. For things like that,
Yeah.
we would have to do it on like an item by item in a time by time thing, where we would, like for this thing, get a price of it and fix it, and if there's other items that he has to have, we would have to get prices on, and then budget it maybe. For this, the pipe, the stand that's like that.
Yeah, yeah.
Doesn't look like a big expense, but I don't know. But
I'm just thinking, getting engineers' input when you're designing the scope of work could, instead of having someone come in, do some work, only to realize, oh, while you were here, you should have done this.
Yeah.
It could end up being more cost-effective to have input, even if you don't do everything that's there, at least they say, okay, well, I mean,
You
you do
talking
this in your house
prior
all
to
the
the
time. I can't do all my
dredging, or-
windows in the first go-around. I gotta do the ones that are the worst first, and then,
Yeah.
and, I don't know if that's something you'd be open to, or if,
you mean having the engineer come
Yeah.
out before?
Yeah, well, I think what Selectwoman MP is asking is that if our engineer could review what the scope of work would be before the actual work was done. So therefore, in case there's somebody saying, oh, maybe you shouldn't use this material, maybe you should use this material, maybe you
I'm
should go to
open to
this
that.
depth or not, just before anybody does anything or spends anything, to say, okay, we agree that if it's done like to this plan, we all believe that this is the right thing to do.
Okay.
That's what she's asking.
Yeah, we would be open to that.
Thank you.
It's just, one second. To your point, you said that we would get a list, possibly, and just go through the list and do it over time.
I don't know, it might be like, this is the most critical thing to do, this
Right.
could have the most impact, but, that's only gonna carry you for 5 years, and you may need, eventually this is going
Yep.
to need to be done.
We would be open to that idea.
Okay. Selectman Nuzolo.
Yeah, I mean, the next steps seem pretty clear to me. Now we just have to, actually talk to conservation and get the engineer there. I mean, their input's going to be much more valuable than mine at this point. But thanks for the update, and I hope this continues to move forward as quickly as it can.
So,
All right.
I have one other question, and
course.
it's more, I think, for the board. I didn't realize that Conservation Commission would need to approve work on the basin on private property.
I only mentioned it because I spoke with people that I've worked with in the past, and they said that, if you're going to do anything, it's best to ask for permission from the conservation before you start it. Then we
I
can
didn't,
give
I didn't know,
people-
that's a requirement? I mean, I
hope
for
it's
my own
not.
education.
Sir, if you want to.
And
Oh, yeah, we have a
Hi,
member.
Chris. Chris is in a butter, a friend, and also on the conservation.
Hi, Chris St. Germain, 268 Flat Hill. I had the same question, Renee. I
Yeah.
didn't realize that a catch basin was considered wetlands.
Want to just get a little closer to the mic?
I didn't, I agree with Renee. I didn't think that the catch basin was considered wetlands. I wasn't sure if that falls under conservation, under that umbrella. So I'm curious to see how, what we can actually weigh in on, considering it's a retention pond, not a wetland.
Well, I think we could contact the Conservation Commission Chair and ask that question.
Yeah.
Like
Or-
before the application.
or
It's like,
Sophie.
do they have to come to you?
Yeah, Sophie
Yeah.
can answer
That's what I
that.
was under the
The
impression.
conservation
that we didn't
agent.
need it. It was just better to
Conservation
ask
administrator
can
before we
answer
did
that.
do
Right,
something.
okay, administrator, okay.
Yeah.
Selectman Imke, I was going to comment on that. I don't know if it's a necessary step, but I think it's certainly worthwhile to meet with Sophie and just
Yeah,
cross it off.
it's an easy
make
question to
sure.
ask.
Yeah.
Maybe it's one less thing you have to do.
One less thing, right?
Yeah, but I also would urge for us to, if there is a requirement for conservation, for them to waive any fees associated with this.
And fees for the engineer also?
Say again?
And fees for the engineer also?
Well, I think we're offering to assist you
Thank
with
you.
that.
I appreciate that.
So I think that that's always been on the table, and I was leaning over to the town manager to confirm that that was still on the table, that's something that is going to be offered and to assist you guys. This is definitely a good thing. I think that what you have here is you have many neighbors who for many years have been asking the association to do something. And I know that, we've had some contentious conversations and, we've had some contentious conversations. This, to me, is us moving in a forward direction, right?
For us, too.
I really appreciate that. I appreciate you guys re-engaging with us. I appreciate you guys being willing to come back to the table, being willing to move to get these quotes and then move forward in resolving this. Because I think that what we'll know, especially with the assistance of our engineer who's really looked into this, is we'll know, was the work done to the standard it should have been done,
Exactly.
performed to? And for your homeowners, which, basically this is about a $200 and something cost per household, if it's about 10 grand, because you guys only have 46 people. And so I know that you guys have to incrementally, as your association, go up in cost too. That you can't go for option C right away.
Right.
Because you guys have a fiduciary responsibility to do things, a
Yeah,
little
it
wisely.
would be devastating to us if that all of a sudden we had to go for option C and do it alone without any help. We really wouldn't be able to
Yeah.
do that in our budget.
And I think as one of your own residents has made us aware, you guys are already working through some snow removal problems up there.
Yes. Unfortunately, we hired a town person, Katie Forrester, to come and do the work for us. She's done a great job. She had a truck breakdown that day.
Yeah.
So it took a little time to come and get the snow taken care of, but she's done a wonderful job for us. We're very happy with her.
Good. So on this one, I think that, Brian's gonna, we'll make sure that, the compensation's where it needs to be, but Brian can provide this assistance, I'm sure. I'm seeing him nodding, so I'm sure. I think this will get us to a point where we can identify, after this is done.
Yep.
What other issues remain. I think this kind of helps take this out of the, it helps move forward and takes it out of the equation in
That's what
some ways.
we're really hoping for that.
And-
That's what we want to do.
And I'm sure if you guys do this work and then you see a bunch of water continue to come in, then I think you guys can move now that you guys have a good plan, that you guys can move forward with, hey, we need to do this bore scope of this 800 feet, whatever that's going to cost.
Right.
Maybe, and then of course, once the engineer looks at this after it's done and says, look, you guys might need to, be looking at a rebuild here, or this is no longer working as designed, or whatever else. But overall, having that openness to the conversation advances us in a forward direction, and I'm very appreciative of that.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
That's,
We have the engineer and our DPW director here. Would it be a good time or prudent to ask if they have any questions,
That was
comments?
coming
or-
next.
Oh, okay.
So next, I will ask, and thank you, Mr. Alonso. So I will ask if there's any questions from the DPW director and also our engineer. And I also wanted to gauge, Wayne, if there are any clarifying questions from abutters, if you guys are open to answering those or hearing them. Maybe not answering them today, but hearing them.
For good getting along and everything. It's all love, right? We'll
In the
do it.
spirit of collaboration,
Thank you.
thank you. Bill? Brian?
Do I go sit?
No, stay. So, I don't have any specific questions, but I do like the idea of meeting beforehand with you and with Powell and with Mr. Marchetti, our engineer. We can sit down, look at the scope of work, make sure you're doing the right thing before you do the work.
Okay?
I can guarantee I'll be there. I'll have to get the scheduling with Bob.
Yeah. Who's your point of contact? Is it Jeff or is it? Yeah, is it Jeff? Is it? Okay, you would know.
So I think it's a great plan, something to move forward. I think what's going to be the most important for the basin is, it's not necessarily just the vegetation clearing, it's just understanding what volume is there. The volume is what makes every basin work the way it's supposed to work. If the basin has a quarter of the volume that it was designed for when it was built, no vegetation clearing is going to make a difference. So I think to figure out the real scope of this, the very first step should be to do an as-built survey of the basin as it stands today, and then compare that to the design plans. And then that'll tell us right away whether the basin has half the volume that it was supposed to have, or it's built as big as it's supposed to be.
And that's a service you can provide for
Yes.
this project?
Yeah. Yeah.
In coordination with Bill and the town manager on the billing stuff? Okay.
And that would clearly define the scope of what Powell would need to do in order to perform the work. And just to clarify the permitting with conservation, the basin itself is not a wetland resource area, but the basin is located within buffer zones to the resource area. So permitting typically would be required for something like this with conservation, but because it's the maintenance of a stormwater infrastructure, it should just be an RDA. It's a request for determination of applicability. It's just a cover letter. There's no fee. And you get on the agenda. You can file an RDA typically a couple weeks before the meeting, and you'll be able to get on the agenda.
When that's scheduled, if you can just make sure that's communicated back to us, I would like this board to provide a letter of support.
Okay.
All right, so I'm going to pause to hear any clarifying questions from any abutters. I know you may not be able to answer them directly this evening, but at least you can take them back to your board and know what the abutters would like a little more information on.
Okay. And I would just like to emphasize, whatever is found out, if it is something that is, devastating, we have to replace the whole thing, which I don't think it would be, we would need to have time and,
Yep.
maybe help.
All right, so Ms. Whalen, I want to look to you first.
I'm not here all night.
We are wrapping up. Matt, do you want to?
That's it.
Sure.
Hi, Matt Allison, 188 and 305 Flat Hill.
See you, Matt.
Thank you. I'm going to try not to be angry, but you said that we've been trying to get the association to do this for years. That's not at all correct, sir. We have been trying to get the town to understand that it dropped the ball between 2000 and 2007 when the planning board signed off on it, okay? We have no problem, I have personally no problem at all with any one of the residents at all there. It's simply that the basin never worked. And I'd like to question the $5,000 thing that we did with Machete already. Wasn't there already a study done and some results presented and some determinations and suggestions made last year or possibly the year before?
Yes, broadly, but not regarding the volume of the basin as built.
I disagree, sir. My understanding was that he stated, that Brian Marchetti stated that the outlet structure was in failure. Was my understanding of his statement at the public meeting discussing the results of his $5,000 bid. I also, my understanding is that we've still got $40,000 from the capital plan earmarked for this specific project, close to $40,000?
Do we? Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So, so getting back to Mr. Marchetti's result report was, I understood it to say that the basin needed to be rebuilt, not dredged or whatever. it's interesting that you think you're going to get some results from Conservation Commission, because one of the neighbors submitted a records request for the conservation documents around this project, and was hemmed and hawed and dragged along, and eventually told that, well, here's your money back, we can't do it. So I'm not quite sure how you're going to get information that we weren't able to get through a records request. Yeah, and thank you, Mr. Emke, for bringing up, is there going to be some direction provided? The direction definitely needs to be provided, to simply have homeowners in an association that aren't necessarily familiar with engineering, don't know drainage, no fault of their own. They're not professionals in that area. They should be getting direction from professionals to provide that direction to other professionals who are going to go and do the work. To simply say that, well, we need these stones and that grass cut, that is pretty unacceptable. And I think I can stop right there for now. Again, I appreciate the time.
Thank you, Mr. Allison, as always. Any other comments? Ms. Whalen, did you want to come forward?
Susan Whalen, 377 Flat Hill Road. This is great progress, and I'm thrilled. But I want to address the water that's coming from the St. Germain's yard also, because that contributes greatly to the water going down the street. And I'm wondering, we don't really know where that water is coming from, whether it's coming from the wetlands that are behind there, or where it's coming from. I was wondering if we could think about doing some sort of study to investigate where that water is coming from. And the reason that I'm bringing this up is there's that empty lot at 252 Flat Hill Road that's right behind Rose and Chris's house. For the volume of water that comes out of there, I'm wondering if there might be a way to detain it before it even hits the street.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like thinking ahead to the next project.
You are.
guys. Sorry. I'm just,
Susan, we're trying to make progress for
we are, but I just want to throw the idea out there.
All right.
Because if you've got the engineer already working on something, I don't know if that is his area of expertise to investigate where that water is coming from.
Yeah, I mean, I think that you're probably, my opinion, my gut, is that you're probably a step ahead of us. I would imagine that in this process, that as Brian's doing his evaluation of the volume of the catch basin, that will also encompass kind of the whole road of, hey, this work was done, the basin, let's pretend that the basin's doing what it was designed to do, albeit they need to make some changes to it. I have to imagine that the investigation will continue. I mean, he's already provided us with a recommendation that we have too much groundwater in the area, and that the best case scenario is to get a pond up there somewhere to funnel all this stuff too, but I mean,
I don't know. I just wanted to put the idea out there to think about while we're thinking about it, because that detention basin is one part. It's multi-issue problem.
Yep.
And while we're addressing one, it doesn't mean that we can't start thinking about another.
Yep, I hear you.
Okay, that's all I had to say.
All right. Karen, Ms. Menard. Mrs. Menard.
Karen's good. Karen Menard, 672 Page Street. I'm actually going to turn this way for a second. Mr. Garapi, I want to thank you so much for coming here today, for your willing to work with us and to hear us neighbors out. We are all affected by this differently, including your own neighborhood. Our house is at an incline. We have water that comes down. We have put in our own drainage, and we get a swimming pool in our basement. we believe that you're a piece of our puzzle. So the fact that you're here tonight and willing to work with us, I cannot thank you enough. Starting somewhere is better than starting nowhere, and I do feel like tonight, for the first time in the 10 years since we have been dealing with flooding down at our house, I feel like there is a piece of the puzzle that is going to start to get figured out. So I don't want anybody to leave here thinking that this is going to solve everything, because it may not, but I want you folks to leave here with a huge thank you, especially from me, because I think this is a great start, and I appreciate you sticking out the entire meeting tonight and willing to work with us. So thank you, and thank you folks for doing this.
All right. Any remaining comments? Yes.
David Melvin, 655 Page Street. Again, I can't say thank you enough. I really appreciate you coming out and at least making these steps forward. But I do have another request, in that when we've had these last few storms, I've been paying attention to where the water is kind of coming from and how it's going. And as it makes that turn from Flat Hill down to Page Street, that first drain is not draining. So it's either lack of volume, or there's a blockage in there at some point between the first and potentially third drainage systems. The one near my house is the third one. I had to keep them clean because we had a lot of leaf material coming in and clogging them, but the first and the second seem to either be overflowing or backed up. So my request would be to potentially get a camera in the system to see if the issue is with a blockage within the pipes themselves, the drainage. And if not, then we could potentially consider increasing the volume of those pipes. As far as the wastewater goes, we're either going to put it in a pipe or over the road. And right now, when we put it over the road, we're eroding the roadsides pretty heavily and causing damage, not just to the roadsides, but trees are falling and so on. So if we could get those things accomplished, I think we'd be making some great progress while they're working on the
Assume
retention
you mean
pond.
stormwater, not wastewater.
Yeah.
We don't want to be throwing wastewater across the road, so.
We'll call it stormwater. So stormwater over the road or under the road, it's up to you. But if we could do those things, they would greatly help, because for the last 3 storms, they have been overflowing.
Yeah.
So I'd like to know if it's because of a volume issue or if it's because of a blockage. If it's a blockage, it might be a quick fix, and that would be a major saver for us as well.
Well, Mr. Bernard, if you wouldn't mind just coming forward so I can kind of turn this question back over to you. I think that what we are hearing from residents, not just today, but prior to today, is that there's a lot of focus on this area in terms of how well the covers for these storm drains are being maintained, and then the storm drains themselves. Can you just talk a little bit about that maintenance plan and kind of what's going to be going on over the course, especially as we get into the spring where we get a lot of water, what's going to be going on over the course of the next months to kind of keep eyes on this?
Yeah, so this issue has come up a couple times. So I've had a jetter truck out there twice, and I've had my catch basin truck out there once. So we did clean the basins, and we did jet the lines. The second time I was there, I saw the jetter go through. He's right, the water, the system was overwhelmed. There was water literally coming out of a basin instead of going into the basin. It's just completely overwhelmed. It appears that the pipes are undersized. But going forward, yeah, typically before storms, we drive around, the guys drive around, they look at basins, they go to the problem areas, make sure the covers are all clear, and, that's the best we can do, and then respond as necessary.
So, I know that you travel around town all the time. I've observed some of this on Lancaster Ave of water coming the road, a little bit on Goodrich. In your experience, is this kind of the worst of it as far as what we're seeing around town?
There's other areas that flood too.
In terms of the catch basins overflowing, pipes potentially being undersized, evidence of infrastructure being inadequate.
No, I've seen other areas. We had the flooding on Electric Ave. That was a lot due to beavers. I think we got that cleared, but it could be partially because of the pipes that's too small. There was a bunch of flooding on New West Townsend Road, and some of that, it took forever for the water to get through the pipes. They're just undersized.
All right. So it sounds like next steps on this is continue to monitor, and is there a plan in place? And I'm sure there's not right now, but, what is the process to go about upsizing these pipes?
Yeah, so that's.
Because I don't know, I'm honestly, like, usually I ask questions, I know the answer to them, or half the time, more than half the time I do, but I don't know the answer to
Right.
this one.
Yeah, so that's something I've been looking at. I did put in 3 capital requests for stormwater or related issues, 3 different areas. I could have come up with 10 more, It's a matter of funding, right? We got to somehow find money to do these upgrades.
All right. Thank you, Bill. Any other questions for Bill or Brian or anyone else?
So those 3 requests, were we on that list? So along those lines, can we put something on the books to potentially look at the cost of this?
If you wouldn't mind just coming to the mic and just repeating that question. That was a good question, but just so we can all hear it.
So going back to the original question, can we put something on the books and come up with a plan to at least figure out what our drainage issue is when it comes to sizing of pipes? And if we need to increase the diameter, then figure out what that cost is?
Yep.
I would also suggest putting a couple extra drainage pieces in, one at the corner of Flat Hill and Page, and the other potentially before Sue's property, where a lot of the water seems to collect. So whether it's groundwater or it's retention pond or whatever, these seem to be the areas that collect, but focusing on those areas that are collecting the water and being able to get rid of it would make our lives a lot easier.
Yep. So we have heard some plans on how this could be remedied, but I think that what you're asking for is reasonable. If I could just call Brian up to kind of just walk us through kind of just a quick summary of kind of how the work you've already done, how that ties into kind of what comes next and the requests that we're hearing as well.
So, I don't know if it's a year ago, 2 years ago, when we started looking at this, we had Whitman and Bingham Associates, who's Haley Ward now, did a right-of-way survey of Flat Hill from the Cortlandt Circle area down to Page Street, and then they did a right-of-way survey from the intersection at Page down to Beaver Brook at the bottom of the hill. So that gave us basically a window within town-owned property in the right-of-way that we got to look at the existing drainage infrastructure that was out there, so the catch basins and pipe network that's in the ground now, and then up on Flat Hill, the lack thereof. There's no pipes in the roadway. From there, we did test pits along the shoulder of the road, along Flat Hill, to look for available areas we could potentially mitigate and store stormwater. That's where we found groundwater elevations were anywhere from 12 inches to 18 inches below grade, so it really didn't make any sense to put a stormwater BMP along the shoulders of the road. In the meantime, we did, a limited inspection of the detention basins, basically right, I believe it's A and B on the plans. So the southern detention basin that we're talking about tonight, as well as the other basin. And that was basically where I put a findings report together that Matt was referring to tonight, that explored potential issues, observations that were made, and one of them, as Matt said, was the outlet structure. At the time, you could see water infiltrating through the sides of the outlet structure. So there were some deficiencies that were found. And I think if now that the Village of Flat Hill is allowing us on the property to do an inspection, if we can do an as-built survey of the basin, we can get a better now understanding of exactly what condition that pond is in. And I agree, this is not going to fix the whole problem of drainage in the area, but this is definitely a start to start eliminating potential sources of where the water is coming from. So I think this is a great first step. Doing an as-built survey is really, I think, the most important part of defining a real scope of what needs to be done, at least at this stormwater management BMP, to figure out, one, if the basin was built according to plan, and two, if, it may have been built according to plan, but over the last, almost 20 years it's been in operation, the volume could have been filled up with sediment, vegetation growing and dying year after year, things like that. So this is really a good first step for figuring out if that basin is functioning as it's intended to function.
So you had mentioned previously that swales likely would be ineffective because the groundwater is too high. And that when you dig about a foot down, you're hitting groundwater, you're going to have standing water sitting there, mosquito beds, everything else. Does that same problem come into play when we start talking about expanding or improvements to the stormwater system?
So the existing basin?
Yes.
Sorry. So,
well, I'm mostly going to the resident who just spoke about, the catch basins that are down the road.
So a catch basin's a closed pipe network.
Yep.
So they're not supposed to have groundwater infiltrating into them. So if they're buried below grade, and they're all connected in chains down to the outlet where it discharges, nothing really should be damming it up or holding it up so that water's coming out of it versus going into it. Water only comes out of it when there's a pressure situation that's created by a blockage downstream. You have all the hydraulic head of the water upstream of it pushing down, so it has nowhere to go except the pressure relief points, which are the open grates at grade. So if that's happening, it's likely a blockage downstream, whether it's at the outlet where it discharges into, I believe, on the Menards property, or somewhere mid-pipe where we've had, over the last year or two, we've seen some of the most intense rainfall, intense storms. So it's a high intensity of rain in a very short duration. None of these pipes are designed for this. The closed drainage network system on pretty much every town is designed for, the pipes are designed for a 25-year storm. We've seen multiple 100-year storms over the last year. So there's no pipe network designed anywhere in any town that's designed for a storm of that size. And that's why these pipe systems can't get rid of the flow fast enough. So any storm's bigger than the 25-year storm, it's typically going to cause flooding. And we saw that in Leominster and pretty much everywhere else over the past year. So typically all pipes are designed in a drainage system to have be 12-inch minimum. So all the pipes underground, at least from the catch basin to the main trunk line of the system, are 12 inches, and then the main trunk line is typically much bigger, 18-inch, 24-inch, depending on the flows at the time when they were designed. I believe the system up here, there are catch basins connected directly to catch basin, so they're basin to basin to basin. So that's typically not allowed anymore in anybody's regulations because they get overwhelmed quickly. Because one catch basin at the very end of the system is still receiving all the flows upstream. So there's too much of a discharge going through that. It's going to be overwhelmed the majority of the time. So, and I believe that's how the system was laid out. I don't even know when the system was built, but it's got to be 50 years ago or plus when that was a standard practice. So there are improvements that could be made, but again, it's a capital project. That's a pretty expensive undertaking for a town. But if it's a problem, like he said, it's something to look at now. And if we identify it as an issue, at least we can put it on the books and try to start analyzing the right way to fix it.
Okay. So I want to get us out of here before tomorrow, so I'm gonna push through the rest of our agenda here. Any other remaining questions from anyone? Because I just want to recap. It sounds as if what you're saying, what Bill's saying, for the residents that are listening is not only are we extremely thankful for the re-engagement with the Village at Flat Hill, I do want to acknowledge the amount of work on our side and on your side that went into that and to softening this relationship to help us get to this point. But it sounds as if, that we're going to work collaboratively with the Village of Flat Hill. We're going to provide some engineering services to evaluate what their scopes are. You're going to perform an assessment of an as-built, to perform an assessment to identify what the as-built is compared to what it was planned to do. And that there will also be conversation about how other water sources. What was mentioned tonight was the St. Germain's property, but other water sources in the area that may be contributing to this and how we can further mitigate. I know you've given us a plan already. I don't think we have a path forward on it, but using existing infrastructure or improvements to existing, how do we get a better result?
So I think it's just going to take a more in-depth study of, first of all, the Basin A. We've already talked about that. Get an as-built. let's see how that functions. The groundwater discharge that we saw flowing onto Flat Hill, that day we were out there with the board, we walked across the property and didn't quite get to walk all the way through because of the briars and whatever. I think that's something that can really only be identified when it's happening, again, to see where it's coming from. And if the Village of Flat Hill is amenable to letting us know when that's happening and allowing us back on the property to go really inspect it, and at that point, if we have to engage someone like a hydrogeologist who can drill borings and do real groundwater testing to see what the subsurface conditions are, even if it's us digging test pits, to try to understand and identify why that's happening, why is groundwater bubbling on the highest part of the hill versus down lower where the condition's not happening. It would have to be something, a more in-depth study like that. I think we'd have to get somebody in there to do borings and do an assessment.
I think it would be helpful to identify kind of what those next steps are, kind of work with Bill and the town manager, kind of put forward that kind of proposal, so that way we are moving as quickly as we can to advance to get to that result.
Yeah, and I know we've talked about it every time, stormwater, the best way to control stormwater is at the source. So having these basins and stuff all along the path instead of one large basin to collect it all at the end. But where we're very limited with right-of-way, you're really being pushed to that big basin at the end. And, we've identified the parcels in the woods behind the Allison's property, in the Whalen's property. And really, you can't, the state regulations don't allow us just collecting all the stormwater on the street now and dumping it down at Beaver Brook, because you're increasing now the flows without mitigating it and letting it out slowly. So the quickest solution is to bring it down there, but then you're basically creating a problem for somebody else downhill. And that's kind of the reason we're here. So we can do these small fixes along the way, but I think while this is all ongoing, having some sort of survey done to figure out what the elevation is of the town-owned property in the woods versus the subdivision road and versus Flat Hill and Page Street, and then figuring out what's the easiest way to get a piped drainage network to that property, should be part of the study. Because when all else fails, if that's the end goal, we want to know if we can actually get there. And I've looked at it with Bill. It doesn't look like an quick and easy way to get there, but there is some, I don't know if they're old turnpikes or old roads and paths that look like they do lead there. But again, we have to look at it and see elevation-wise what makes the most sense. And it may end up being, the town getting an easement through somebody's property to bury a pipe to get through it. But we don't know until we start looking. And I think this really is, after all is said and done, probably the most realistic solution to fix the problem out there is piping it, collecting the stormwater at the surface, at the source, piping it underground and getting it back to a detention basin.
All right. Thank you, Brian, for all your work. We do appreciate it. And thank all the residents and who came out tonight. Thank you to the Village at Flat Hill for contributing to the conversation. So thank you.
All right.
Do you want your pen back? Or do you or do you like the blue?
Much prefer the blue. How you doing? Maybe.
Yeah, I have one.
Oh, I didn't even see it.
Next steps,
Sorry?
we get next steps for at least looking at the drainage pipes? Like,
Yeah.
We did a lot of talking, but do we have next steps?
We went over it, yes, so a couple of times toward the beginning. You might have to, yes. I know in the moment, sometimes we don't pick up on it, but yeah, we did.
Just running a camera through the first couple of drains, can we get that done?
No.
Why not?
If you want to just come forward for a sec. So, just to recap, so the Village at Flat Hill is going to be working on their detention basin, getting it all cleaned out. The engineer is going to evaluate that scope of work, and then he's going to evaluate the basin to confirm if what is actually there is what should be there. in terms of what was approved is what was built, what was designed, and what was approved. There will be an awareness after it's cleaned. If they continue to get this outflow of water, then they agree that next step would be to move up and then do that scoping of the pipes.
I don't think that's what he's asking. He's asking the point that he brought up about
Yeah.
the 3 existing catch basins.
Right,
He
we
wants to know,
got 3
can they be
drains
checked?
that are basically backed up, so we want to know, are they plugged? Is the pipe too small for the volume of water? And it doesn't take much to run a plumber's camera down 300 feet of pipe. I mean, that's not asking for a whole lot.
No. So the town manager can address that with Bill, but yeah, what I thought I heard was that they've made efforts to do this and that they're going to keep working on it, but I think they need to get down there as soon as possible.
Well, they've done what they were supposed to. They came in, they cleaned those catch base, or those drains out. They've come in and they've jetted the pipes, so we think that that would have solved the problem. We're still seeing an issue, so what I'm saying is, can we clarify and just make sure that we don't have root blockage or some other issue that's in those drain pipes? Because then that'll tell us that for those 100-year storms, we may want to increase the diameter of those drain pipes.
Yep.
As far as getting that stormwater to go underground in larger diameter pipes and conservation and issues with downstream, it's either going through the pipe or over the road, but it's the same volume of water that's moving. So we're
Yeah.
really just looking for something that gets it off of the surface, so we don't have to watch it freeze or clog drains or roadsides and so on.
Yeah, it probably wasn't that clear, I think, but one of the things that I asked Brian was to look into your concern and kind of come up with a plan on how to address that.
Right.
And he committed to doing that.
Okay, yeah, like I said, just getting a camera down there gives us more information.
Yeah,
So
it does.
If the town has one, great. If not, it's a relatively inexpensive thing for a plumber to come in and do.
Yep,
But it would be information that we should have.
I agree.
Thank you.
Thank you for your service. All right. I'm going to call one more time for our 7:10 hearing on Conrad's. Is anyone from Conrad's in attendance this evening? Anyone from Conrad's? What's the appropriate next step?
I think the board can act on the denial of license. The owner has not paid the back taxes. There was a payment agreement, an
Well,
old one.
Before you get into it, we need to decide to open the hearing.
Okay.
Do we want to open our hearing related to Conrad's? Or do we want to reschedule this?
I mean, it's not, are they operating right now?
Yes.
Yes.
Well, how are they operating without a license?
This is the process the town has to follow by our bylaw, is a denial of the license.
But I thought they didn't even apply.
They did.
So how do you deny a license that it's expired? I guess I'm missing the workflow here.
All right, so
I'm missing the workflow.
the
They
town-
had a license from last year, it expired December 31st of 2023, is that correct?
Yes.
So, and they didn't apply for a new one?
Correct.
So how are we denying a license they didn't apply for, and the other one's expired? So I don't understand what we're denying.
Yep. So do you want to explain this one, or do you want me to try to?
Go ahead.
So it has to do with due process, that if we go and then pursue any action, that such as, legal action, that we have to provide some form of due process in which we have to give them the opportunity to come before us to explain that they're operating without a license, and then we say you don't have a license, and the terminology is denial of a license. And without that due process, we can't take any further action. So I know what you're saying, which is black and white, which is, well, it's expired, it doesn't exist, so let's move on to the next step. The issue is there's a requirement before we can, that we have to have a hearing to give them due process.
Okay, I'm assuming this came from Adam.
So this is due process.
All right, there you go.
So, do we want to have the hearing?
Has anybody talked to them directly?
Yeah.
Elaine's been the one communicating from the office with them.
She's spoken to them, other than, like,
Well,
not
he
just...
came into the office just the other day.
Okay. Yeah, I would say, on the one hand, it's a long-standing business. I'd like to give them deference, but on the other hand, it's like we've contacted them several times. So it's a
Is it
coin
possible
toss to
they
me.
thought the meeting wasn't happening because town offices were closed? I mean, when was the last time
Elaine
Elaine
did
spoke
not
with
get
them?
any contact from them. I reached out to her today, so everyone now can see their phone calls through their email,
Yep.
their new phone system, as well as, she didn't have any emails from them. So there was no, and other people did reach out to see if the meeting was still on, and we
Well-
told them it was, so.
What I would say is we postpone it, because maybe they understood, because the town, maybe I'll even give that as a possibility, but I want it televised, it's recorded, it has to be next week, and it's gotta be the first appointment next week.
It can't be next week, it has to be the March.
That's a pretty long time.
We have to give them more notice, and then I know next week we have our delegation.
Well, I know the delegation's here, but this is not gonna take long.
But I think we have to give them, 2 more weeks?
I forget the days requirement. It was a reasonable
Yeah.
notice.
I don't know.
Well, we can open it up and continue it till next week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then we can do it next week, right?
We can open it up right
So
now,
they-
which I.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, we
Yeah.
can open it up and continue it to give them till next week.
It
so
is
that we're up to be
14-day
published.
notice, yeah.
Right, so I would recommend that we open it and immediately continue it till next week, so we don't have to post again. And make it first thing next week, and they have to be here, otherwise we're gonna find.
Okay, I'm gonna,
Can we start a little earlier, maybe?
yes.
Yeah, that's, well, I
I
don't
mean,
need,
like a 6:45 next week?
that's fine with me.
To
Just
give
so
them
we
an
can get-
opportunity to get in here, and that way we stay on schedule
Right.
for everything else.
Yeah.
Is that okay with you?
Sure.
Renee's checking, Selectman Nuzolo is 6:45 next week, potentially okay with you?
Yes, I
All
like
right.
Mr. Olson's recommendation.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and open the public hearing. So we're opening the public hearing. This is pursuant to Lunenburg Bylaw, Article 2, Section 16, licenses and permits of delinquent taxpayer. The licensing authority may deny, revoke, or suspend any license or permit, including renewals and transfers of any party whose name appears on said list furnished to the licensing authority from the tax collector, provided, however, that the written notice is given to the party and the tax collector as required by applicable provisions of law, and the party is given a hearing to be held not earlier than 14 days after said notice. Said list shall be prima facie evidence for denial, revocation, or suspension. So we are opening the public hearing with Conrad's, and I move to suspend this hearing.
No.
Continue.
Continue.
This hearing until, what's the date next week?
2/20.
February 20th.
February 20th,
Until February 20th at 6:45 PM.
second.
Any additional discussion? All right, so that's a motion to continue to next week at 6:45. This is a roll call vote. Selectman Nuzolo?
Aye.
Selectman Imke?
Aye.
Selectman Alonso?
Aye.
And an aye for myself. All right, and that, we're not closing, we are just continuing. All right, to the town manager.
Okay, I'll start off with boarding committee and commission vacancies. There is one vacancy on the Architectural Preservation District Commission, one vacancy on the Cemetery Commission until the next annual town election, one vacancy on the Council on Aging, one regular member, and one associate vacancy on the Green Communities Committee, two vacancies on the Historical Commission, one member at large vacancy on the Open Space Committee, and one vacancy on the Personnel Committee. Anyone interested in any of these opportunities can fill out the volunteer application form that's found on the town website, complete it, and return it to the Select Board's office. And if you have any questions on the roles and responsibilities, you can contact our office at 978-582-4130, extension 144. For employment opportunities for the town, the list is getting smaller, so that's exciting. Facilities custodian, 40 hours a week, a heavy equipment operator position for 40 hours a week, land use director, 40 hours a week, and a temporary administrative assessing assistant for 32 hours a
We're
week.
gonna have a big party when we're full employment.
Yes. Information on these job opportunities can be found on the town website as well. An update on 925 Mass Ave. In speaking with our consultant, Joe McLaughlin of the Beta Group, he said that the EPA had received additional funding for brownfields and suggested we could use some additional funding to do some water and soil testing in the areas that were slightly above the standards. So I reached out to the EPA to ask for this additional funding for this purpose. We met virtually with Jim Byrne of the EPA on Friday, and they thought they definitely could do this scope of work for the town. Joe provided them a scope of work with all the associated components, and we're hoping to hear soon on the official approval. Joe will also be filing an immediate response action, which is also called an IRA, completion report that is required by the Mass DEP that details activities completed at the site. For updates on bids and RFPs, the assistant town manager and I are in the review process for requests for proposals for data collection services for the assessing department for fiscal 25 through fiscal 27, and a request for qualifications for owner's project manager services for the Marshall Park project related to the construction work that would be paid through the park grant and ARPA funds. Both should be finalized shortly. The assistant town manager is also working with the facilities director on an invitation for bids for the town hall roof replacement project. Invitation for bids for the Flat Hill Culvert project will be advertised on February 27th, and bids will be due March 27th. An invitation for bids for road materials is due on February 21st. And the request for quotations for personal property maintenance and utility appraisal services was due on February 8th. We received one proposal from RRC for $21,100 for fiscal 25, $22,600 for fiscal 26, and $23,200 for fiscal 27. The assistant town manager has notified RRC that have been awarded the bid. So this is the company that we have been using for this service. So, and we've been happy with their service. FEMA decision on September storm reimbursement. I received a call yesterday from the Executive Office of Public Safety notifying us that FEMA denied the state's request for reimbursement for the September storms, saying the impact was not of such severity and magnitude as to be beyond the capabilities of the state and affected local governments and voluntary agencies. The state does plan on appealing the decision of FEMA and working with their federal partners to advocate for a reimbursement. The state did appropriate $5 million in the fall for the September storms, so there is a chance Lunenburg and the other affected communities will receive reimbursement through the state through that funding. The town's request for this to FEMA was for $75,000. Also FEMA-related update. This is for reimbursement for COVID-19 related expenses. Through the fire department, we received the reimbursement paperwork for COVID-19 related expenses that were submitted over 3 years ago, totaling $66,788. This is from FEMA. When these funds will be received, they will be taken in as a local receipt and go towards the closeout balance at the end of the fiscal year they are received. For our fiscal 25 budget updates, I was notified by our Maya Health Insurance Senior Account Representative on February 5th that our final rate increase would be a 5.7% increase for active health insurance plans for town and school employees. As you may recall, the estimate given to us earlier this year was a 10% increase, and then the estimate was revised when Maya released their rate range in January to 6.6%, so this final number is 5.7%. Tammy Crockett from Monty Tech notified me that the school committee reviewed a budget that would be a 3.75% increase, which equates to $44,256 that we could use for a preliminary number. The school committee, Monty Tech School Committee, will be voting on their budget at their March 6th meeting. Update on electricity supply. Working with our energy broker, Tradition Energy, they solicited pricing for a new contract that would be effective starting November of 2024, when our current contract for aggregation expires. Based on the pricing received, we will be securing a contract with BP this week, and that will be close to 11.77 cents per kilowatt hour for 48 months.
What is it?
And I say close to is because when we get the pricing, within days, it can fluctuate.
What is it currently?
11.868, I think it's done. So it's less. And that's why looking to lock in for a long for your time. Update on grants from the fire department. They received an emergency management performance grant for $3,500 for replacing 2 cold water rescue suits and accessories for the inflatable rescue boat sled, and $18,800 for the firefighter safety grant to replace, update 3 power saws and 3 portable radios that would replace obsolete ones. That's all my updates in my report.
And now we're chairless. Does the booth have any interlude music?
I hear steps.
Just to note, the agenda that I printed out, that was originally in the Google Drive, was the incorrect one. There's the one that was posted. The only difference is the ARPA subrecipient grant was on the one that was posted under old business. So, sorry about that.
Thank you for helping move us forward. Thank you for the town manager report. And as Heather just indicated, the agenda we have printed is a little different than the one we posted. So we're going to go by the posted agenda.
And I put the posted one in the drive.
All right. Subrecipient grant agreement for ARPA disbursement. Have we all had the opportunity to take a look at that agreement? That's in our drive.
Do you want me to just preface, it was reviewed by town council, the board has the tracked version, so you'll see all the changes that were made by town council. I also sent it to the water district, both versions, the original version, and then when I got the version back from town council, I sent them that version as well to the water district, food pantry, and the Boys and Girls Club. And the water district had no questions or concerns. They reviewed it. The food pantry, their only question was who would they put as the agency to fill it out? And since the community food pantry is the 501c3, that would be the entity that would fill it out. And the Boys and Girls Club, Michelle said they had a meeting last night. She would be bringing the last version to the meeting, but I did not hear back from her today.
I didn't have any.
I think it's fine. Selectman Nuzzolo, I just want to call on you here.
I've reviewed it. I don't have any feedback or anything.
Yeah, it's a pretty straightforward agreement.
Pretty boilerplate.
Yeah. So I think, do we need any more? I mean, the water district did respond with nothing, basically.
Mm-hmm.
So do we need, do we need anything else before we can approve this?
I don't think so. I mean, the point of doing all this was making sure we're getting the money in the hands of these agencies, so.
Yep.
And they report back on the use of the money, right?
Yeah,
That's within the-
Communication
Yeah,
reports and
right.
records.
I mean, that was the two.
That's the whole point, right?
Right.
Yep.
Yep.
All right.
I would move that we accept and approve the ARPA grant agreement as printed to us, dated 2/1/24.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any additional discussion? All right, it's going to be a roll call vote. Selectman Nuzzolo.
Aye.
Selectman Imke.
Aye.
Selectman Alonso.
Aye.
And Selectman, aye for myself, Selectman Jeffries. All right, I'm getting used to the whole Selectman Franco thing, so it's throwing me off. All right, Discussion on fiscal year '24 budget, fiscal year '25 budget, capital plan, annual town meeting, and warrant articles. So something that we were trying to do to help consolidate with time is the town manager is going to be presenting to the finance committee next week.
No, this week,
This
Thursday.
week, I'm sorry. Thursday, I'm sorry, Heather, I'm still a little off. Town manager's going to be presenting to the finance committee this Thursday, and I encourage the board to watch that presentation. I think that typically the finance committee usually peppers the town manager with a series of questions that's often informative to us. But we certainly have the opportunity now, if anyone has had the chance to look at that budget that the town manager just sent over to us earlier today. Otherwise, I would ask that we discuss it next week.
I have not had a chance to look at it since just received today.
All right. Okay.
And just also in that agenda topic is discussion on fiscal '24 budget. Just want to give a brief update on the 40S funding. So, and I'll put this in an email with the spreadsheet that was provided to me today. So it's gone back and forth. I was directed to speak with someone at DESE, and we finally were able to connect today. Representative Kushmerik asked to join that meeting, so he was in attendance as well as his aide. And the person from DESE walked us through the spreadsheet, which includes the formula of how they figure out the educational component of the kids that go to school at both Lunenburg Public Schools and Money Tech. That was something that wasn't explained. So because fiscal '23, of when this year's calculation was based on, we received a large bump in Chapter 70 funding. We went from a minimum to a foundation aid community, so the per pupil cost is a lot higher for foundation aid communities. So it equated to roughly $730,000 out of our Chapter 70 funding that we received that year was attributed to those children. That obviously, so we received more in funding, and local receipts plays into the calculation. That's why we became disqualified from receiving that aid. So there's other pieces, like they said, inflation also has a factor. So I think it was fiscal '22 and fiscal '23, inflation was a factor, where in '25 that inflation factor is coming down. Behind the low income as well, and ESL plays a factor in that calculation. So that all plays into it, but mainly the driver was the minimum aid contribution amount per pupil cost, and that they were those 47 children, I think it was, that it was that much of our bump in, because we received almost $1 million that year. So I will forward the spreadsheet.
So how are we going to make that up this year?
We will, because of our conservative estimates for local receipts, and I will continue to recommend budgeting that way, is we're able to close out without having a deficit. So we'll be able to cover that based on our local receipts exceeding our estimate. And this has been said a couple times, both by Sean Cronin at DLS and the person at DESE, that we may well qualify next year. So we are back to a minimum aid community, but due to those other factors, like
How do we get that? Did they take money away from us?
It's, I'd have to go back, and that's a
Do they
good
operate
question
their whole
for.
operation on a magic 8 ball? Because I swear, nobody People who have studied this,
This is part of the information.
nobody explains it and
Yeah.
nobody can understand it.
So what, and I haven't had time, because we just had that meeting this afternoon, and I just received the worksheet and a reference to all these, the terminology and kind of more information that we can understand the lingo. But I think what was funny was Representative Kushmerik said, the complexity of DESI is hard to explain, and I think DESI thinks the complexity of what DLS has to do for a calculation is hard to explain. So, but both components are difficult because.
Hard to explain.
Yeah.
Yes, that's great. If DESI is, elementary and secondary education, and they can't teach people in those levels to understand the formula they use, how they fund education, that is a statement in and of itself. But I'm not saying anything that I haven't said and other people haven't said for, 20 years.
So the additional Chapter 70 for smart growth zone children that went from 1,290 to now 728,577 is right.
That's what they're
that's
saying.
an astronomical, phenomenal jump.
Yes. That was why
And-
I wanted to know what the numbers were behind that number.
I still can't get my head around it. That's basically why we came out to a negative number
Mhm.
at the end of the equation.
Yes.
All right.
That's clear as mud to me. I don't,
Well, that's what I just
was
said.
that predictable? Was
Telling
that?
All right. I think that there's going to be a lot of attention on the meeting on Thursday. I know that we didn't go into the details about the preliminary budget that you sent over today, and I don't think it would be appropriate to offer tidbits, snapshots of what was pulled out of it without the full presentation, so I will refrain from offering any of that up today. But I do know that there's a lot of attention on this year's budget, and I did, over the past couple of weeks, have the opportunity to speak with or meet with all the members of our delegation to address this specific issue, and then what I perceive to be a structural flaw in the 2.5 system, being that there's no inflationary adjustment. In other words, the only way to account for hyperinflation is to get all residents to agree to account for hyperinflation, which, given income inequality, given that we have a significant percentage of our population that's senior and who retired on much lower incomes than what people have now, asking a lot of our retirees to pay more is just asking for too much. But I do know that there's a lot of challenges. I'm happy to see how some of these were balanced out in what's being proposed, and I welcome the conversation that will happen on Thursday and encourage all members of the board to attend.
And the documents are on the website.
Yes.
All right. All right, approval of minutes for October the 3rd, 2023. I move to approve the minutes of October 3rd, 2023.
Second.
Any additional discussion? Roll call vote, Selectman Nuzolo.
Aye.
Selectman Imke.
Aye.
Selectman Alonso.
Aye.
And an aye for myself. All right, we got some warrants here this evening. May I use your pen again? Thank you. We have an accounts payable warrant in the amount of $668,531.70.
I took it out because it was in there.
We have a payroll adjustment, it looks like. Payroll adjustment in the amount of $744.45. And then we have a payroll warrant in the amount of $987,987.12. Do we have any action items this evening? Any committee reports?
Board of Assessors met last week when I was on vacation. I caught some of it. And I viewed their meeting yesterday. So they are going through the preliminary numbers of the final revals, and they're setting up their town report from their department and setting up how to convey all the information they can to the public before it gets approved by DOR. So it's a tight deadline that continues, but they're still within the deadline. And because of that, they're really navigating kind of rough waters about what they can release and not get people, misunderstood that what's preliminary and what's final, but still asking people, or responding to people who want to see what available data they have. So they've been two very, very good meetings. I also watched the Finance Committee meeting, and they had a lot of discussions about the grant writer position. They talked about Prop 2.5 and the school budget. That was probably the two largest. And then, of course, talked about the upcoming meeting, which is Thursday, where the town manager will present the preliminary budget for 2025.
All right.
And I have one timely, I think, based on the topics and discussions we had tonight. The Stormwater Task Force is now full.
Excellent.
Jenny Putherer is the Conservation Commission representative, so thank you again, Jenny, for volunteering for that. And our next meeting is supposed to be Thursday, but it just occurred to me, I hope the agenda got posted. The town buildings were closed, so I don't know how that impacts the agenda.
If it wasn't posted by Monday, it probably wouldn't.
We're having CEI come in.
You can check. Kathy was
Present.
here today. She was in the building most of the day.
That you can
Let's go down and
go
look.
outside when you leave.
Yeah.
All right. Any other committee reports?
The planning board met last night, but nothing really to report. So the continuance for the development at 255 Sun Hill Road is ongoing until February 26th. So nothing else to report.
All right. Caesar, what's your projected graduation date?
March 18th.
Ooh, so does that mean that we should expect then to see you bright-eyed and bushy-tailed on the 19th, or on the, or are we going to see you in
I can
April?
drive back, so it'll be the week after that. But,
All right.
Yep. Next month.
All right, make sure you drive safe. I'm sure we'll talk as we
will.
do. All right. I just wanted to comment on a couple of things. Number one, I want to thank the board for the openness to hearing the presentation from Josie. Josie is just so impressive as a young mother, young resident in town. She's just such an impressive person. It really is a joy to work with her. But I appreciate the board's openness on that discussion. I know that what we were trying to gauge tonight was just that, the openness, and to come back to the committee with that, so that way we can formalize. So I do, as always, appreciate the questions that came out of that. We also received an email today from Shady Point, and this is in response to the request that came from Open Space Committee to transfer some property. And the gist of what the email said, and I am inviting them to come, but the gist of what they said was how they can work with us to provide community access to Lunenburg residents at their site for non-motorized vehicles. I think that a lot of what they provided as a proposal to us kind of addresses a lot of what was identified by Open Space as a need. And so my limited questions, but questions nonetheless to them, were related to timelines. With that proposal, what would the time be? Is that something that's going to be offered for a year, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, in perpetuity? Just to get some clarification on that. They acknowledged that they hadn't discussed that yet. I did speak to them. They acknowledged they hadn't discussed it, that they would do that. I am looking to schedule a meeting to have them with us when we next discuss the request from Open Space, so that way we can bring that to a vote. and decide if we're going to add that to the warrant. And then I also had a really, I speak to a lot of people over the course of the week, but I'm just pointing out that I did have a really productive conversation with the school committee chair. We talked at length today about budget. I had several questions on the budget, but just broadly speaking, on the community-related issues, how we can work better together, and it was just a really healthy, good conversation. I think I think Carol is extremely easy to talk to, and she's very with it and aware and down to earth, and it was just a really helpful discussion. So I just wanted to share that with the board. So part of what that conversation as well was about was our meeting next week. So we do have a site walk this coming Saturday at 10 o'clock. We're starting at 51 Parmenter, then heading over to 0 Shirley Reservoir Road. This should only be about 45 minutes. I'd like for this to be a site walk. I don't think there's a lot for us to discuss. It's just getting eyes on the properties. I did decline the invitation from Shady Point for us to add them to the agenda, only because it's a Saturday morning, and I think that any of us can go at any time to check out their property. On the February the 20th, we are meeting with our state delegation, and that's scheduled from 7 to 8:30. So over the next week, by the end of the week, I need to provide the delegation with like a sub-agenda, but the general format request that came from Evan, Chair of the Finance Committee, and from Carol, Chair of the School Committee, was for their members to have the opportunity next week to also ask and engage with the delegation. So the way that we're going to format that generally is it's going to be a 90-minute conversation with the delegation from 7 to 8:30. We will afford each respective chair 20 minutes for their boards to engage, and then we will reserve the balance of the time for a conversation as well as with the chairs that will be joining us. And again, that's going to be Evan from Finance and Carol from the School Committee. And then our regular meeting will begin at 8:30. We are trying to purpose this to be a very brief agenda, so that way we're not here till 10 o'clock next week, knowing that 8:30 will likely spill. And so that way we're out of here at a reasonable time. And then next month we're targeting 3 meetings as usual, and not meeting on the last meeting of the month. That's all I have. Anything for me?
I don't know, maybe it was an action item, I'm not sure. The remote meeting policy.
Yep.
That kind of fell off? Is that something we're going to come back to?
We are.
In March, okay.
Yes. Yep. We're going to be hitting we're going to be pretty policy heavy throughout March. Pretty policy heavy throughout March. Yep. We have a couple things already kind of on the agenda for that first meeting, but the idea is to kind of get us to talk with each other more and not to get frustrated in the process. Let's go to public comments. Any public comments this evening from the town manager?
None, thank you.
All right. Any public comments from the public? Mr. Passios. You're becoming a fixture again, Dave. It's good to see you.
Temporarily, anyway. Dave Passios, 56 Whiting Street. I guess I'll call it unofficially before you as a member of the Green Communities Committee.
Yep.
I am going to make a request that's very, very unusual, but it is covered by the agenda.
Yep.
In the preamble, under unanticipated items, and it would be at your purview if you are willing to take it up. We've had a associate member that's been trying to get elevated to a full voting seat for quite a period of time. She has a conflict every single Tuesday. She's a musician in either an orchestra or a band, and she was under the impression that she had to be here for that vote to happen. I'm asking you this evening about the possibility of you, at a very minimum, interviewing. She's on Zoom right now, and either elevating her this evening, or at least you've had the conversation with her and then elevate her next Tuesday.
So we certainly cannot elevate her this evening, but I am very open to meeting with the member. I understand schedule limitations. If she wants to speak with us, we're in a comment period. She's more than, I will expand it to allow engagement, but if she'd like to speak to why she's interested in becoming a full-time appointee to the role, I'm happy to hear it. Who's the member?
And I recommended her for this elevation.
Kim?
Also, it's Kim Duffy.
Yep.
Yes,
I would
thank you.
also say, Mr. Chair, that there is no requirement that somebody be here to be elevated to any position.
Right, she did not realize that, and her appointment's been rescheduled 3 times. In fact, she was on the agenda for this evening and was taken off and tried to get put back on Monday, and it didn't happen.
Yeah, we weren't making any adjustments.
Yeah, no, I get it.
Well, I think we're all familiar with Kim, right? Yeah, I mean, Kim, you're more than welcome to speak, but I think we're all familiar with Kim. I think we can take this up in Kim's absence. I usually, for new appointees, I always ask for new appointees. In my role as chair,
right.
I've asked for them to come forward. However, we're familiar with Kim.
Yeah, she is on Zoom.
All right. I think we can put this on the agenda for next week, and it'd be a quick appointment, Dave. And Kim does not need to be here.
Okay.
All right.
I greatly appreciate it. Thank you.
Are we all in agreement with that approach?
Yeah, but if she wants to speak, she
Yeah, but
can
you're
certainly
welcome to speak, Kim, if you're here. You're welcome to offer
Oh,
a
yes.
couple words.
Thank you. I appreciate you taking a minute to consider this. I did join. I wanted to just say just a couple of words of thank you. I didn't know I didn't have to be there. So I appreciate that opportunity. But this is Kim Duffy, 1479 Mass Ave. So I'll just say a few words in case I'm unable to meet next week. But I'm currently in the Green Communities Committee as an associate member, as Dave Passy has mentioned. However, I would like to request to be appointed as a full member. I've been an associate member since the summer of 2023, and during that time I've continued to learn about the committee in town and would like to contribute as a full voting member. I've recently rolled out a social media presence for the committee to spread awareness of the grant programs for the town and residents, the projects the committee has completed, and to continue to encourage environmental sustainability. So, I'd also like to continue the collaboration between the Green Communities Committee and the other town committees, commissions, and boards. So, for those reasons, I would really appreciate the full member appointment, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, Kim. And thank you for your volunteer work here in the community. And we will schedule this. It's going to be late into the evening, so you do not need to be there. I think we're familiar with you, and we can have this on the agenda for next week.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you, Dave. I think we're going to have a couple appointments next week as well, because I think you have some talent bank forms that are coming in this week. Any other public comments from the public? Any public comments from the board? Thank you all for toughing it out with us tonight. As we get into March, we're going to try to stick with our 90-minute model. That doesn't always work, but we'll try to focus on that. I know tonight was a lengthy meeting. I want to thank everyone at home and just remind those that, public comments, I know sometimes are contentious, but that's not a bad thing. Sometimes people don't have the full information. It's not a bad thing. It provides an opportunity for us to clarify, for us to understand concerns. And so I just want to encourage any member of the public who has concerns, who has things that they'd like to get addressed, to please, you can always reach out between meetings. You can request to be put on the agenda, and you're always welcome to come and make a public comment. If you are a member of another board, you are always welcome to come meet with the select board without a scheduled agenda or scheduled appointment for about 10 minutes, just to give us some highlights, updates, things that you want to bring to our attention. And that's at the beginning of every agenda, where we note communications from other boards. Similarly, if we receive emails that you'd like for them to be read, we also will use that opportunity to read them. I know that next week I will be reading some communications that's coming forward. So I want to thank everyone for joining with us this evening. Have a wonderful night. And is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Any additional discussion? All right, Selectman Nuzzolo.
Aye.
Selectman Imke?
Aye.
Selectman Alonso? Aye. And an aye for myself. I want to extend a well wishes to Mr. Franco. Certainly hope that he feels better, and we look forward to him being back on the team next week. Have a wonderful evening.